Chapter 1790. However, in the face of Zhuge Mingyang's divine power, Qin Feiyong remained motionless. What's going on? Could it be that he has some amazing means? Seeing this, second grandpa looked at Lu Zhang and asked, "Let's wait and see." Lu Zhang laughed. Boom. The grayish-white divine power drowned Qin Feiyong. He didn't dodge? He really doesn't know what's good for him. Zhuge Mingyang laughed wildly. But when the divine power dissipated, Qin Feiyong's body didn't have any fatal wounds at all. How could this be? Zhuge Mingyang's eyes widened in anger. It seems that you're really angry. Back then, we ate the giant python's divine meat and drank its divine blood together. Do you know the giant python's cultivation level? You don't, but I do. It has a perfected god of war. It's easy to imagine how much benefit its flesh and blood can bring to us. Qin Feiyong said. Perfected god of war. Second grandpa and the others were shocked. Fourth grandpa asked, Zheng is what he said true? It's true. I was also there at that time. The divine beast's flesh and blood tasted really good. Lu Zheng laughed. The three of them were shocked. What exactly did you experience in the divine sight? They even ate the divine beast of a perfected god of war. This group of kids is really crazy. High in the sky. Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, Zhuge Mingyang was stunned and laughed. If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it. But I think I also ate it. My physical body is not inferior to yours. In other words, the final winner of this battle is still me. Zhuge Mingyang laughed and used teleportation. He rushed forward and punched Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong punched. The two fists met and both of them were knocked back at the same time. The strength and power of their physical bodies were indeed neck and neck. Swish! Following closely, the two of them attacked each other at the same time. Bang! Bang! A fierce battle immediately unfolded. Every punch landed on flesh. A terrifying power roared between heaven and earth. The void and the earth were collapsing and sinking. The emperor smiled and said, judging from the current situation, Feiyong definitely has the strength to fight Zhuge Mingyang. No. Emperor Hong shook his head. What is it? Could it be that Feiyong is still not a match for Zhuge Mingyang after activating the Eye of Heaven? The emperor was bewildered. No. What I mean is that the outcome of this battle is already decided. Zhuge Mingyang will definitely lose. Emperor Hong laughed. The emperor heaved a sigh of relief. Zhuge Mingyang's strongest move is his innate ability. Now that the innate superpower has been broken, it no longer poses a threat. Next, it will be a battle between the divine arts and the divine power. Although Zhuge Mingyang's divine power is stronger than Feiyong's, Feiyong's divine arts are much stronger than Zhuge Mingyang's. Emperor Hong said. How strong? The emperor was curious. Strong enough to make you despair. In short, the strongest person in our great Qin lineage is Feiyong. He has become the true pillar of our great Qin. Emperor Hong smiled with relief. The pillar of great Qin, the emperor murmured, looked up at Qin Feiyong, and said with a smile. Feiyong, you are father's pride, father is proud of you. Emperor Hong frowned again and said, but until now, I still have a question that I haven't thought of. What question? The emperor was suspicious. Lu family's fourth son's divine phoenix power can compete with Zhuge Mingyang's divine power. But why is Feiyong's divine dragon power inferior to Zhuge Mingyang's divine power? Logically speaking, the divine power condensed from the purple gold dragon qi should also be able to reach this level. It should even be stronger. Emperor Hong frowned, his expression full of confusion. Because of the blood of the true phoenix. Fourth grandpa's voice suddenly sounded. Blood of the true phoenix? Emperor Hong and the emperor looked at fourth grandpa, their brows full of suspicion. Although bloodline atavism can make our talent better, in order to make our divine power stronger, we must fuse with the blood of the true phoenix, and only by fusing with the blood of the true phoenix can we be considered to have completely atavism. Fourth grandpa said. Emperor Hong said, in other words, Feiyong still has to fuse with the blood of the true dragon? Yes. And it must be the blood essence of the purple gold divine dragon. But in today's world, even a divine dragon is hard to find, let alone a purple gold divine dragon. Fourth grandpa sighed. The blood essence of the purple gold divine dragon. Emperor Hong and the emperor looked at each other, a hint of suspicion flashing in their eyes. The emperor looked at fourth grandpa and asked, "Then where did you get the blood of the true phoenix?" "It was left behind by my Lu family's ancestor. There was only one drop. Originally, we planned to leave it to Jiajin, but although his talent is amazing, his bloodline power has not atavism," fourth grandpa said regretfully. "So that's how it is," the emperor muttered. When Lu Zhang heard this, he turned to look at the three grandpas and said, "What about me? If there are benefits, you can't just think about Big Brother." "You." The three of them glanced at Lu Zhang. Second grandpa shook his head and said, "Forget it, you can only be like this for the rest of your life. We have never expected you to become someone like your cousin and your big brother." "My temper." Lu Zhang's nose was crooked from anger, and he said angrily, "Even if you are elders, I will not forgive you." The three of them rolled their eyes. The emperor looked at Emperor Hong and said with a smile, "Grandfather, it seems that the thing that great-grandfather left behind back then was prepared for descendants like Fei Yong who had atavism." Emperor Hong was Qin Fei Yong's great-grandfather, so he was naturally the emperor's grandfather. And the great-grandfather that the emperor mentioned was undoubtedly Emperor Hong's father, Emperor Qin. "That's right. I didn't understand before, and I didn't take it seriously. But after hearing Lu family's fourth son's words, I finally understand." Emperor Hong exhaled, looked at the emperor and said in a low voice, "Go and get the imperial jade seal immediately." "How can I go now?" The emperor smiled bitterly. His qi had not been repaired, so he could not open the portal. Emperor Hong was stunned, shook his head, looked down at second grandpa, and said, "Second grandpa Lu, let us enter the enchantment." "There's no other way. This enchantment, you can only leave, not enter," second grandpa said. "What?" Emperor Hong was surprised. "You can only leave, not enter?" What should he do now? The qi of the three of them was also destroyed. If he went to get the imperial jade seal, the state preceptor would definitely take the opportunity to attack the emperor and the three of them. He could also take the emperor and the three of them back to the imperial palace. But what about those Marquis and the Kirin army? As soon as he left, the state preceptor would definitely take the opportunity to attack. Although these Marquis were not strong, they were the foundation of Great Qin. Once all the Marquis were killed, the order of Great Qin would be in chaos. Qin Shang said suspiciously, "Emperor Hong, didn't you get a space divine object in the miracle?" "I did, but it was taken by the state preceptor." Emperor Hong's expression was quite angry. Inner Demon's Emperor Hong waved his hand and said, "You go get it, I'll protect them." "Can you do it alone?" Emperor Hong was stunned and asked. "Nonsense." Inner Demon's Emperor Hong glared at him, snatched the heavenly great sword and shouted, "Go!" "Okay." Emperor Hong nodded, immediately opened a teleportation door, turned around and rushed in. And seeing this, the state preceptor's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. What was this old thing going to do? However, this was an opportunity. His eyes flashed with killing intent and he shouted, "Law enforcers, listen to my order, immediately kill those Marquis and the Kirin army." Hearing this order, a group of law enforcers looked at each other. Those Marquis and the Kirin army were also in a panic. The strength of the law enforcers, especially the law enforcers of the inner hall, far surpassed these Marquis and the Kirin army. Once they attacked, the consequences would be unimaginable. "What? You dare to disobey my orders? Don't forget, you are all controlled by the blood soul technique." The state preceptor turned to look at the law enforcers and shouted angrily. The law enforcers' eyes trembled. Boom! Immediately, waves of aura erupted. Thousands of law enforcers majestically charged towards those Marquis and the Kirin army. "You all step back." Inner Demon's Emperor Hong's eyes surged with killing intent, and with a wave of his hand, the Emperor and Qin Sheng immediately landed on the ground in the distance. Boom! Immediately after, Inner Demon's Emperor Hong used teleportation and charged towards those law enforcers. "Your opponent is this old man." The state preceptor smiled coldly and stood in front of Inner Demon's Emperor Hong. His aura was like a rainbow. "Get lost!" Inner Demon's Emperor Hong roared. The heavenly great sword awakened and slashed out. "Humph! You are not the only one with a divine weapon." The state preceptor snorted, and with a wave of his old hand, a black sickle appeared. He grabbed the sickle and divine power surged in. The sickle suddenly bloomed with a black light, like the sickle of a death god, and charged towards the heavenly great sword. Clang! The two divine weapons met and sparks flew. The sharpness was actually equally matched. That group of Marquis and the Kirin army, looking at those murderous law enforcers, had long been scared out of their wits. The law enforcers of the temple were originally a sharp blade, dedicated to eradicating dissidents for the emperor. In other words, they only obeyed the emperor. Of course, now they obeyed the state preceptor. For these cold-blooded and ruthless law enforcers, the entire court, civil and military officials, all respected them like gods. And the law enforcement hall was the nightmare of countless people, and they did not want to go in even if they died. So, at this moment, their hearts were filled with despair. Some of the more timid people were scared witless. Inner Demons Emperor Hong shouted, "Why are you still not running?" His voice was like a bell, shaking the sky. A group of Marquis and the Kirin army quivered, hurriedly opened the teleportation door, and fled in panic. Seeing this, Second Grandpa said in a deep voice, "Old Three, come with me to help." Third Grandpa nodded. "You are at least my great Qin's Marquis, to actually be so unbearable, what a joke." But at this time, Qin Feiyong's voice sounded. Everyone raised their heads to look at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and a divine seal appeared out of thin air. Perfect divine art, divine dragon seal. Zhuge Mingyang was sent flying on the spot, his body bleeding profusely. Following closely, Qin Feiyong lowered his head to look at those law enforcers. His hands forming seals at lightning speed. One after another slavery seals appeared, like a meteor shower, flying towards the top of those law enforcers' heads. "This is not good. Ancestor, quickly cripple their bloodline power." Zhuge Mingyang shouted. The slavery seal could break the blood spirit technique. Once these law enforcers regained their freedom, it was very likely that they would immediately rebel. Although he had never put these law enforcers in his eyes, he could not let the great Qin Empire take advantage of them. Chapter 1791. Hearing this, the imperial tutor raised his head to look at those slave seals, and his face suddenly changed. He knew that the slave seals could break the blood-soul technique. So even without Zhuge Mingyang's reminder, he knew what Qin Feiyong was going to do. He made a prompt decision. With a thought, he activated the blood-soul technique. However, at this moment, the purple gold dragon's soul roared at the imperial tutor, and the emperor prison instantly opened. The imperial tutor was immediately imprisoned in the void. And it was a complete imprisonment. Even the blood in his body stopped flowing. Even his mind fell into a blank. "You're courting death," Zhuge Mingyang roared, waving his big hand, and the heavenly demon's hand flew out, carrying a world-destroying ferocious power, and slapped towards the purple gold dragon's soul. "Humph!" Qin Feiyong snorted disdainfully, and the divine dragon seal appeared again, blasting towards the heavenly demon's hand. There was no suspense. Facing a perfect divine art, it was completely crushed. The heavenly demon's hand shattered. Zhuge Mingyang was also sent flying, blood gushing out of his mouth. At the same time, those slave seals sank into the heads of those law enforcers, and screams resounded through the sky. Qin Feiyong not only helped them break the blood-soul technique, but also controlled them. These people were all the imperial tutor's subordinates. If he did not control them, he would not be at ease. And the inner demon's Emperor Hong also seized the opportunity to revive the heavenly great sword, slashing towards the imperial tutor. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Just as Qin Feiyong broke the blood-soul technique, the imperial tutor regained consciousness. Seeing the inner demon's Emperor Hong's sword slashing towards him, his face suddenly changed. However, although he regained consciousness, his body could not move. He looked at the heavenly great sword in horror, his eyes full of despair. If this sword came down, wouldn't he be cut in half? At this critical moment, Zhuge Mingyang's eyes were gloomy, and with a wave of his hand, the heavenly demon flag appeared, and with a monstrous demonic power, it blasted into the emperor prison. Kacha! The emperor prison was actually shattered by the heavenly demon flag. The imperial tutor immediately regained his freedom, and without hesitation, he hurriedly retreated. Puff! The heavenly great sword fell and blood splattered across the sky. On his chest, there was a wound so deep that his bones could be seen. However, the state preceptor was rejoicing. Fortunately, Zhuge Mingyang had intervened in time. Otherwise, this sword strike wouldn't have just injured him, it would have taken his life. However, although his life had been saved, his face was filled with disbelief as he looked up at the purple gold dragon's soul. In the past, he had fought with Qin Feiyong and seen the Emperor Divine Prison, but he had never felt his mind go blank. Qin Feiyong lowered his head to look at the Imperial Advisor and said, "It seems like you have already discovered the changes in my Emperor Divine Prison." "What's going on?" the Imperial Master said in a deep voice. "As you can see, my purple gold dragon soul has not only awakened the Eye of Heaven, but the Emperor Divine Prison has also undergone new changes. This change, I call it consciousness deprivation. In other words, not only can the Emperor Divine Prison imprison living beings, it can also strip away their consciousness. I think I don't need to tell you how terrifying it is to lose consciousness during a battle." Qin Feiyong said. Consciousness deprivation. The state preceptor's heart was in turmoil. Awakening the Eye of Heaven was already very shocking, but he didn't expect the Emperor Divine Prison to have such a terrifying ability. In the world today, who could be his opponent in the same realm? Consciousness deprivation. At the same time, when Zhuge Mingyang heard this, he also felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, Qin Feiyong didn't activate the Emperor Divine Prison when he fought with him. Otherwise, he would have been caught off guard and suffered a great loss. He might even lose his life on the spot. However, now that he was prepared, there was nothing to be afraid of. Not to mention, he still had a trump card. Zhuge Mingyang waved his hand and the sky demon flag turned into a black light and returned to his side. The demonic aura spread in all directions. Sky demon flag. Qin Feiyong looked at the sky demon flag, his eyes flickering. This demonic item could instantly destroy the Emperor Divine Prison. It seemed that he couldn't underestimate it. Zhuge Mingyang laughed. "You probably don't know that the sky demon flag is a heaven-defying artifact. Do you think heaven-defying artifacts are cabbages?" Qin Feiyong sneered. Hehe. Indeed, the sky demon flag hasn't reached the level of a heaven-defying artifact yet, but its power. Zhuge Mingyang waved his hand and divine power surged out and entered the sky demon flag. The sky demon flag buzzed and trembled. Roar! A gigantic demonic dragon suddenly roared as it appeared. The demonic dragon was blood-red and its demonic aura shook the world. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced toward Qin Feiyong. Boom! Qin Feiyong didn't underestimate it. The divine dragon seal appeared and blasted toward the demonic dragon. Because of the aura emitted by the demonic dragon, even he couldn't help but feel flustered. Boom! The two behemoths collided, and the world suddenly lost its color. A destructive aura gushed out in all directions like a tidal wave. And under Qin Feiyong's shocked gaze, the divine dragon seal and the demonic dragon actually dissipated at the same time in the void. In other words, the power of the sky demon flag was completely on par with the divine dragon seal. The divine artifacts in the world are also divided into grades. Low-grade divine artifact, middle-grade divine artifact, high-grade divine artifact, supreme-grade divine artifact. This sky demon flag is a supreme-grade divine artifact. The power of a supreme-grade divine artifact is completely on par with a perfect divine art. Haha. Are you surprised? You have a perfect divine art, the divine dragon secret art. I have a supreme-grade divine artifact, the sky demon flag. In today's battle, who will win and who will lose is still unknown. Zhuge Mingyang laughed wildly. Supreme-grade divine artifact. Qin Feiyong muttered. The divine artifact was divided into low-grade, middle-grade, high-grade, and supreme-grade. The divine art was divided into low-grade, middle-grade, high-grade, and perfect. Indeed, as Zhuge Mingyang said, supreme-grade divine artifact was comparable to a perfect divine art. However, so what if it was a supreme-grade divine artifact? The means he displayed now were not even 1/5 of his peak state. Roar! His mind moved. A purple gold divine dragon roared out. Divine dragon roar. Invisible sound waves, like a tide, drowned the void and rushed toward Zhuge Mingyang. It's useless. Zhuge Mingyang laughed and waved the sky demon flag. The wind whistled and swept across the sky. Among them, there were also roars, like the roars of ghosts, making one's scalp tingle. Rumble! The invisible sound waves and the whistling wind, the two collided wildly in the void, the destructive aura covering the sky and earth. The void was collapsing, the earth was sinking. It was like the scene of the end of the world, shocking the world. The emperor looked at the battlefield in the sky and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect this Zhuge Mingyang to have such a terrifying demonic creature. It seems that your highness will be in a tough battle." Qin Sheng sighed. Originally, he thought that Qin Feiyong's means had become so strong that he would definitely be able to end the battle easily. But he didn't expect that Zhuge Mingyang's background was also so shocking. Sky Demon Flag. They had never seen a divine artifact of this level. Swish. It was also at this time. Emperor Hong returned, holding the Imperial Jade Seal in his hand. And he specially ran back for the Imperial Jade Seal? The State Preceptor was stunned. Lu Zhang, Second Grandpa and the others also looked at Emperor Hong suspiciously. Emperor Hong glanced at the State Preceptor, looked at the Qin Sheng trio, and asked with a smile, "Do you know what is in my hand?" "What do you mean?" The three were suspicious. It's not like they haven't seen the Imperial Jade Seal before. Was there a need to ask? "This is the Imperial Jade Seal. It was my father, Qin Feiyong's great-grandfather, personally made." Emperor Hong laughed. "We know," Qin Sheng trio said. Emperor Hong asked, "Then do you know what is in this Imperial Jade Seal?" "Inside the Imperial Jade Seal?" The three were stunned, looked at the Imperial Jade Seal and said in surprise, "Is there something hidden inside?" "Yes." Emperor Hong nodded, stretched out his hand to the inner demons, and said, "Give me the Heavenly Great Sword." The inner demons handed the Heavenly Great Sword to Emperor Hong. Emperor Hong grabbed the Heavenly Great Sword and immediately slashed at the Imperial Jade Seal. Seeing this scene, Qin Sheng trio's expression changed. Qin Sheng hurriedly grabbed Emperor Hong's arm and exclaimed, "Emperor Hong, what are you doing?" "You'll know later." Emperor Hong smiled, indicating for Qin Sheng to let go. Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "If you don't make it clear, I will never let you do this. You are the son of the previous emperor. How can you destroy the Imperial Jade Seal?" The emperor said, "Grandfather is doing this for the good of Feiyong." "For the good of his highness?" Qin Sheng frowned, turned to look at the emperor and said angrily, "Your Majesty, why are you messing around? Destroying the Imperial Jade Seal and for the good of Qin Feiyong, this had nothing to do with it." The emperor said, "Leave." "Your Majesty," Qin Sheng roared. "Leave." The emperor frowned and shouted, "Sigh." Qin Sheng sighed and retreated to the side angrily. The emperor looked at Emperor Hong and warned, "Grandfather, be gentle. Don't destroy the things inside." "All right." Emperor Hong nodded, raised the Heavenly Great Sword, and cut down bit by bit. "Who are these people?" "Even the Imperial Jade Seal left behind by the previous emperor is going to be destroyed." If the previous emperor knew about this, he would probably jump out of the coffin in anger on the spot. Looking at this scene, Qin Sheng was incomparably angry. The other two old men looked at Emperor Hong's actions, and their brows were filled with dissatisfaction. But suddenly, a powerful aura surged out from the imperial ruler's seal. "This is..." Qin Sheng and the other two were surprised. It was actually a dragon's might. And it was extremely pure. It was the first time in their lives that they had sensed such a pure dragon's might. It felt as if there was a divine dragon sealed inside the Imperial Jade Seal. The State Preceptor, Lu Zhang, Second Grandpa, and the rest of the Lu family were also surprised. Even Qin Feiyong and Zhuge Mingyang were alarmed. The two stopped at the same time and looked down at the Imperial Jade Seal in Emperor Hong's hand. At this moment, the Imperial Jade Seal was cut in half. Not only the dragon's might, but there were also strands of purple gold divine light that shot out from the cracks, extremely dazzling. A few breaths passed. With a crisp sound, the Imperial Jade Seal suddenly split into two. Emperor Hong also immediately put away the Heavenly Great Sword. Immediately. That purple gold divine light was as dazzling as the scorching sun. At the same time, Qin Feiyong's bloodline power suddenly went berserk, crazily rolling and surging in his body. P.S. I was delayed by something today. I tried my best to rush out, but I only managed to rush out one chapter. Everyone don't wait. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 1792. Qin Feiyong noticed this abnormality at the first moment. He hurriedly looked inside his body. His blood was flowing wildly, and even seemed to be burning. All over his skin, there was a faint burning sensation. He was extremely surprised. What was going on with this throbbing from his bloodline power? All of a sudden, his eyes shot out a bright light, and he lowered his head again to look at the imperial seal. The change in his bloodline power seemed to be caused by this imperial seal. What exactly was inside? Why would it make his bloodline power so restless? Looking at Emperor Hong again. After putting away the heavenly great sword, he held half of the imperial seal in each hand, and then slowly separated. There was also an unconcealable excitement in his expression. Finally, the two halves of the imperial seal separated. The thing hidden inside also appeared in front of everyone's eyes. They saw that in the center of the imperial seal, there was a purple gold crystal. The crystal was extremely small, estimated to be the size of a mung bean. It was crystalline and translucent like a peerless divine jade, and it was dazzling and extremely beautiful. It's actually... When second grandpa, third grandpa, and fourth grandpa saw the crystal, their old eyes were full of shock. What is it? Lu Zhang asked in surprise. The blood essence of the purple gold divine dragon. Fourth grandpa said with a pause between each word. What? It's actually the blood essence of the purple gold divine dragon. Everyone was dumbfounded. Qin Feiyong's eyes also suddenly widened, full of disbelief. There was actually a drop of purple gold divine dragon's blood essence hidden in the imperial seal? This was such an unbelievable thing. But it happened in front of them. Wait. Since it's the blood essence of the purple gold divine dragon, why is it a crystal? Lu Zhang was suspicious. It's because it's been stored for too long, the blood has solidified, and it's completely sealed, so it slowly turned into a blood crystal. Fourth grandpa said. The blood essence of the purple gold divine dragon. Zhuge Mingyang was also in extreme disbelief. Qin Feiyong swallowed his saliva and said with difficulty, Great-grandpa, is this also left by the ancestors? Yes. Emperor Hong nodded. Qin Feiyong wanted to say something again. But suddenly, the bloodline power in his body became even more frenzied, pulling his body towards the blood crystal. Qin Feiyong was taken aback and quickly stabilized his body. However, the more he did this, the crazier the bloodline power in his body became. In the end, his body flew towards the blood crystal uncontrollably. He could even clearly sense the bloodline power's desire for blood crystals. Seeing Qin Feiyong's abnormal behavior, Zhuge Mingyang frowned. The state preceptor was also suspicious. But suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something as his face changed drastically. He shouted, Mingyang, stop him. He wants to merge with the blood crystal. Fusion? Zhuge Mingyang was bewildered. Just now, I heard the conversation between Emperor Hong and Lu family's fourth brother. The reason why Lu family's fourth brother's divine power can contend against your divine power is because he has fused with the blood of the true phoenix. The state preceptor said in a deep voice. You mean, after Qin Feiyong fuses with this drop of purple gold divine dragon's blood essence, the power of his divine power will also become stronger? Zhuge Mingyang said. Yes. Once he fuses with this drop of blood crystal, his bloodline power will completely return to its ancestral state. At that time, his strength will definitely become stronger. He must be stopped. The state preceptor roared. Boom. When Zhuge Mingyang heard this, he immediately activated the Sky Devil flag and rushed towards Qin Feiyong. So that's how it is. Only by fusing with the blood of the true dragon can my bloodline power be considered to have completely returned to its ancestral state. Qin Feiyong muttered. Previously, when he was fighting with Zhuge Mingyang in the sky, he did not pay attention to the conversation between Emperor Hong and the others. It was only now that he understood. It turned out that the reason Emperor Hong took this drop of blood essence was to fuse with him and make him stronger. Since it was such a good thing, then he absolutely could not let Zhuge Mingyang mess it up. Supreme Emperor. When the statue appeared, its divine might shook the world. Zhuge Mingyang and the Sky Devil flag were immediately stopped. A cold light flashed in the state preceptor's eyes. He leaped and pounced towards Qin Feiyong. Even Zhuge Mingyang is not my opponent, let alone an old bastard like you. Qin Feiyong smiled contemptuously. The divine dragon seal appeared, carrying a monstrous aura as it blasted towards the state preceptor. Ah! With a scream, the state preceptor was immediately blasted away, his body dripping with blood. Is this the perfect divine technique? The state preceptor murmured. Too terrifying. The moment he faced the divine dragon seal, he felt as if he was facing a death god. An uncontrollable fear emerged in his heart. Amazing! Emperor Hong, second grandpa, and the others saw this scene and laughed out loud. To injure the state preceptor in an instant, who could compete with such means? This kid had completely grown up. It was time for them old guys to withdraw from the stage. Clang! Boom! High up in the sky, the statue formed by the Supreme Emperor crazily collided with Zhuge Mingyang and the Sky Devil flag. The state preceptor was also blasted thousands of miles away, his body bleeding profusely. And those law enforcers, after the blood soul technique was broken, also obediently retreated to the distance to watch the battle. So now, no one could stop Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong landed beside Emperor Hong. Back then, my father once told me that in the Imperial Jade Seal, there was a drop of purple gold divine dragon's blood essence, but he didn't tell me the purpose. So I didn't take it to heart, and even slowly forgot about it. And just now, when I heard the words of the Liu family's fourth son, I suddenly realized. So this drop of purple gold divine dragon's blood essence was specially left for the descendants of bloodline atavism. Emperor Hong laughed. The emperor shook his head and sighed. Great-grandfather, he really planned far ahead. Take it. Emperor Hong handed the blood crystal in front of Qin Feiyong. Facing the true dragon's blood close at hand, the bloodline power in Qin Feiyong's body had already gone crazy to an unprecedented level. Qin Feiyong glanced at Emperor Hong and the emperor, stretched out his arm, and took the blood crystal. Immediately, the blood crystal melted in his palm and quickly seeped into his body, merging with the bloodline power. Boom! Inside his body, there seemed to be some shackles broken, exploding with a muffled bang. Following closely, an extremely pure dragon might roared out from his body. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and a wisp of divine dragon power emerged. At that moment, a destructive aura enveloped all directions. The void, crazily shattered. The emperor and the other two, under this aura, felt as if they were trapped in an ice cellar, their whole body cold. Emperor Hong's pupils also contracted, full of fear. But at the same time, they couldn't help but be excited. Because at this moment, Qin Feiyong's divine dragon power was several times stronger than before. So this is the true power of the purple gold dragon Qi. Qin Feiyong murmured. Looking at the divine dragon power at this moment, he couldn't help but be moved. Boom! He turned around and walked towards the sky step by step, as if there was an invisible ladder under his feet. His long hair fluttered, his clothes fluttered, giving people a feeling of ethereal. Everyone looked at him as if they were looking at an immortal monarch stepping into the air. That kind of calm temperament, that invisible domineering aura, that resolute face, and that imposing figure at this moment, were deeply imprinted in everyone's soul, unable to be erased. Finally, he stood opposite Zhuge Mingyang and said lightly, "Your so-called advantages are all gone. I don't believe that your divine dragon power can be compared with my death god power." Zhuge Mingyang roared, and instantly teleported in front of Qin Feiyong, raising his hand and punching out. Gray-white divine power rolled out, annihilating in all directions. Death god power. So this is your divine power. Qin Feiyong whispered, also raised his arm, and punched towards Zhuge Mingyang. The divine dragon power surged, shattering the void. Boom! The two fists collided together, the two divine powers continued to clash, and the surrounding void continued to collapse. At this moment, Qin Feiyong's divine dragon power was not inferior to Zhuge Mingyang's death god power at all. Why? Why exactly? I paid such a huge price in exchange for this death god power. And Qin Feiyong, without doing anything, got the divine dragon power. Why is it so unfair? God, I hate you! Zhuge Mingyang roared into the sky, his grayish-white hair fluttered, and his body burned with wisps of devil flames. Following closely, a terrifying aura of death, with this place as the center, surged in all directions. Immediately, flowers, plants, and trees, all withered. Emperor Hong, the Emperor, Qin Sheng III, and even Qin Feiyong and the State Preceptor, the blood and vitality in their bodies were also flowing away crazily. Emperor Hong looked at those marquee law enforcers and the commanders of the Kirin army, and roared, "This is no longer a place where you can stay. Quickly leave." When the group of people heard this, they opened the portal one after another and ran in as if they were running for their lives. Emperor Hong also brought the emperor and Qin Shang with him as he flew away without looking back. In their hearts, they were all extremely shocked. Could it be that this Zhuge Mingyang was really a god of death? "I want to destroy everything. I want you to despair, I want you to suffer, I want this continent to be plunged into misery and suffering, and not even a blade of grass will grow." Zhuge Mingyang had completely gone mad. That terrifying death aura seemed endless, constantly emerging from his body, and had spread tens of thousands of miles away. Flowers, plants, and trees, all withered. Fierce beasts and wild beasts also turned into dried corpses in an instant. In less than 3 breaths. Within tens of thousands of miles, it became a land of death, without any vitality. The void was filled with a tragic aura. Only the Lu family, under the protection of the enchantment, was safe and sound. But the second grandpa was very anxious at this moment, and shouted, "Fei Yong, outside the mountain range, there are dozens of villages, and the people living there are ordinary people, quickly stop him." "Dozens of villages." Qin Fei Yong's eyes trembled. The second grandpa said in a deep voice, "Yes, at least tens of thousands of people. According to his trend, not to mention those dozens of villages, I'm afraid the entire imperial capital will suffer in the end." The fourth grandpa also followed. Qin Fei Yong glanced around. This death aura was indeed not ordinary terrifying. However, this Zhuge Mingyang was really ruthless. Even the state preceptor was not spared. In just a short while, the state preceptor's old face, which was already a bit older, became even older. Qin Fei Yong took a deep breath, looked up at Zhuge Mingyang, and said, "It's time to end it, and this time, you can forget about resurrecting." "Haha. Let me tell you, the only one I hate in my heart now is you. If you have the guts, try to kill me." Zhuge Mingyang laughed wildly. Chapter 1793. "I'm the only one you hate," Qin Fei Yong muttered. With his current methods, it was actually easy to kill Zhuge Mingyang, but he didn't dare to. Why? It was because he was afraid that Zhuge Mingyang would revive again. One had to know. If Zhuge Mingyang was given another chance to revive, his cultivation would most likely break through to the level of war god. At that time, it would undoubtedly be even more difficult to get rid of Zhuge Mingyang. So, he had been waiting. He had also been thinking of ways to anger Zhuge Mingyang. Because only in this way would Zhuge Mingyang transfer all his hatred to him. In this way, Zhao Tai-Lai and the others who were hiding in the Black Tortoise realm would undoubtedly have a chance. As for whether Zhuge Mingyang would transfer his hatred to Zhao Tai-Lai and the others in the end, he wasn't worried at all. Because hatred wasn't something that could be transferred just like that. There had to be a process. Just like last time. Zhuge Mingyang transferred his hatred to Lu Jiajin because Lu Jiajin had displayed amazing talent, causing Zhuge Mingyang to be unreconciled and thus hate him. In other words, as long as Zhao Tai-Lai and the others could get rid of Zhuge Mingyang in one go, then they would be able to kill him completely. Because Zhuge Mingyang simply didn't have the time, nor the opportunity, to transfer his hatred. So, when he heard Zhuge Mingyang say that he only hated him, he knew that the time had come. "Do you hate me?" Qin Fei Yong chuckled and activated his 3,000 incarnations. 500 incarnations appeared in the void. Qin Fei Yong joked, "Looking at this scene, do you hate me even more?" Zhuge Mingyang was about to go crazy. 3,000 incarnations was his god art. If he had these 3,000 incarnations now, why would he be afraid of Qin Fei Yong? The death god's power surged out and poured into the Sky Devil flag. The Sky Devil flag was vast and mighty, shattering the void for thousands of miles as it charged towards Qin Fei Yong. "Hate. The deeper your hatred for me, the easier it will be to kill you," Qin Fei Yong muttered to himself. His 500 incarnations simultaneously transformed into the sovereign of the 9 and 5. 500 statues towered into the clouds. Divine might shook the heavens and the earth. Even the supreme-grade heavenly fiend flag could not help but tremble in the face of the 500 statues. It stopped in midair and did not dare to take another step forward. "Sky Demon flag, are you betraying me?" Zhuge Mingyang roared. The Sky Demon flag remained indifferent. Zhuge Mingyang was mad with anger. He roared, Ancestor, quickly come and help. The imperial tutor's eyes flickered. Damn it! Zhuge Mingyang roared. How does it feel to be betrayed by your friends? However, you don't have the right to blame Zhuge Xinyun, because you were the one who disrespected him first. For someone like you, even if you live to the end, even if you stand at the peak of this world and become the ruler of the world, you will still lose everything. Qin Feiyang said. If I am really the ruler of this world, what is the use of having them? I alone am enough to destroy everything. Unfortunately, I am not. Zhuge Mingyang roared. Sigh. If there is no kinship, no love, no friendship, what is the point of becoming the ruler of this world? Qin Feiyang sighed. That is why it is difficult for you to achieve great things. Zhuge Mingyang sneered. You still don't understand. The strong should be respected, not feared. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Cut the crap, Sky Demon Flag, quickly attack. Zhuge Mingyang roared hysterically. Whoosh. However, hearing this, the Sky Demon Flag did not attack Qin Feiyang. Instead, it turned into a stream of light and escaped into the sky. Damn it, damn it. Zhuge Mingyang roared like thunder. Mingyang, do you still not understand? The Sky Demon Flag has begun to hate you. Furthermore, the owner of the Sky Demon Flag is your master, not you. You can't command it. The State Preceptor sighed. Zhuge Mingyang instantly glared at him and roared, If you don't want to help, then shut up. Otherwise, I will kill you first. The State Preceptor was silent. He looked at Zhuge Mingyang, feeling extremely pained. All along, he had spared no effort to nurture Zhuge Mingyang at all costs. He even treated Zhuge Mingyang as his own child. However, he did not expect that the outcome would be like this. Actually, you don't have to fight to the death with Qin Feiyang. As long as you enter the divine item, what can he do to you? The State Preceptor shook his head and did not say anything else. He looked around and began to look for a way out. Hide in the divine item. Haha. I, Zhuge Mingyang, will never do such a cowardly and incompetent thing. Qin Feiyang today, it's either you die or I die. Zhuge Mingyang roared. The Sky Demon Hand and Bone Dragon Art were both evolved. They carried the last of his will and attacked Qin Feiyang. As you wish. Qin Feiyang's eyes turned cold. Clang. The 500 statues raised the broken swords in their hands at the same time. The sharpness of the broken swords could destroy heaven and earth. Boom. When the first broken sword fell, the Sky Demon Hand and Bone Dragon Art were shattered on the spot. This was the power of a perfect divine art. Moreover, the third move, Supremacy of the 9 and 5, was more powerful than the first move, Divine Dragon Seal, and the second move, Divine Dragon Roar. It was unstoppable and unstoppable. I, Zhuge Mingyang, was born to be the overlord of the 8 barren lands. How can I be defeated by you? Sever art, exterminate art, kill. Zhuge Mingyang roared while spurting blood. The destructive power of the 2 divine arts was overwhelming. The first broken sword was immediately shattered with a loud clang. The first statue also disintegrated. But there were still 499 statues behind. The wind howled and the clouds rolled. The so-called Sever Art and Exterminate Art were completely unable to resist and collapsed. The 499 broken swords came crashing down. However, there was no fear in Zhuge Mingyang's eyes, nor did he take half a step back. He looked at Qin Feiyang and his eyes calmed down. He shook his head and said, It seems that no matter how hard I work, I can't surpass you. Why must you compete with me? Isn't it better to be yourself? Qin Feiyang said. To vent my anger. I just want to prove that I, Zhuge Mingyang, am not inferior to anyone, including you, Qin Feiyang. Obviously, I have failed. But even if I fail, I won't die. The only one who will die will be you. Zhuge Mingyang suddenly smiled and a destructive aura rushed out of his body. Damn it! There's a spatial divine object, yet you chose to self-destruct. What a fool! The Imperial Grandmaster roared in exasperation, and hurriedly escaped into the spatial divine object. Feiyang, quickly hide. Second Grandpa and the others also changed their expressions. The self-destruction of a false god was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth, let alone the self-destruction of a war god. But Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear. You don't even hide from self-destruction. You really aren't afraid of death. But I like it. Don't worry, after I am reborn, I will help you take good care of Emperor Hong and the others, as well as the people from the Lu family. Zhuge Mingyang stared at Qin Feiyong and laughed again and again. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, "Self-destruction can also be reborn?" Self-destruction can't be reborn. But if... Zhuge Mingyang grinned, bringing along that destructive aura. He took a step forward and grabbed Qin Feiyong's arm, his divine power surging out. Following closely, he grabbed Qin Feiyong's arm, and with a poochie sound, he forcefully pressed it into his chest. Blood spurted out like a fountain. It even shattered his heart. This person is too crazy. Second Grandpa and the others looked at Zhuge Mingyang, and their backs couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. If you self-destruct like this, then it's the same as you killing me, and I can be reborn again. And now, even if you want to enter the ancient castle and Black Tortoise realm, it's already too late. Go to hell. Zhuge Mingyang laughed crazily. Sigh. Even now, can't you see it? Ever since I appeared, everything I've done has been to infuriate you. And now, you ran over and stood face to face with me, which is exactly what I was looking forward to. Because of this, Zhao Tailai and the others can kill you in one blow. Don't treat others as fools. Qin Feiyong shook his head. His mind moved. Tang Hai, Zhao Tailai, and Old Man Qin suddenly appeared behind Zhuge Mingyang. The 3 Sea of Qi had already been repaired. Tang Hai held a dagger in his hand, and Zhao Tailai held an axe in his hand. Obviously, they were ready to kill Zhuge Mingyang. As soon as they appeared, Tang Hai didn't say anything, and immediately grabbed the dagger and stabbed Zhuge Mingyang's lower abdomen. His Sea of Qi shattered. Zhuge Mingyang's self-destruction was forcefully interrupted. How is this possible? Aren't they in the Forgotten Continent? He turned his head in disbelief, but what greeted him was Zhao Tailai's axe. A loud crack sounded. Zhao Tailai's axe split Zhuge Mingyang's skull open, and under the sharp edge of the axe, his soul was shattered on the spot. Fresh blood stained the sky. Zhuge Mingyang didn't even have time to scream before he fell head first onto the ground. However, Qin Feiyong was still worried about his soul being shattered. Quick! Crush his bones and scatter his ashes. Qin Feiyong shouted. Zhao Tailai, Tang Hai, and Old Man Qin nodded. Divine power rolled out and pounced on Zhuge Mingyang's body. In an instant, flesh and blood flew everywhere. What's going on? Inside the spatial divine item. The Grand Tutor looked at Zhao Tailai and the other 2, his old face full of disbelief. Weren't they in the Forgotten Continent? Finger they are. Second Grandpa and the other 2 looked at Lu Zheng in surprise. Old Man Qin, I don't need to introduce you, you know. The other 2, one is called Zhao Tailai, and the other is called Tang Hai. They are both war gods, subordinates that my little cousin subdued in the miracle. Lu Zheng smiled. Second Grandpa said, That's not what we're asking. Then what are you asking about? Lu Zheng looked at the 3 suspiciously. Suddenly he patted his head and smiled. Because of some reason, our battle with Mu Tianyong didn't break out at all. Old Man Qin and the others have been waiting in the Black Tortoise realm. Didn't break out? Second Grandpa and the other 2 looked at each other. In that case, this was a trap set by Qin Feiyong? That's right. This is a trap. He had already planned it before entering the imperial capital. After all, this Zhuge Mingyang is not an ordinary character. It's hard to kill him without some extreme measures. Lu Zheng sighed. Third Grandpa frowned and said, Why are you so afraid of Zhuge Mingyang? You still don't know Zhuge Mingyang's methods. He has mastered a demonic art called the Undying Demonic Art. This demonic art can bring him back to life, and every time he revives, his strength will skyrocket. Lu Zheng said. Chapter 1794. Come back from the dead? Second Grandpa and the others were surprised. Lu Zheng said, I'll tell you in detail later. Fourth Grandpa, can you go out? Yes. Fourth Grandpa nodded. Then this barrier. Lu Zheng scanned the barrier. This barrier comes from this walking stick. When it's activated, I need to use my divine power to activate it. Once it's activated, it no longer needs my divine power to support it. Fourth Grandpa said. There's such a thing? Lu Zhang was surprised and said, "Then hurry up and don't let the State Preceptor escape." The State Preceptor would definitely escape when he saw the three of them. Fourth Grandpa nodded and handed the walking stick to Second Grandpa. He rushed out of the barrier, and his divine power surged in all directions. Found it. Almost at the next moment, his eyes flickered. The Space Divine Object was in the void not far from his left. Inside the Space Divine Object, the State Preceptor sensed Fourth Grandpa's divine mind and immediately drove the Space Divine Object to escape. Humph! Fourth Grandpa snorted and teleported in front of the Space Divine Object. His divine power rolled out and condensed into a barrier that immediately enveloped the Space Divine Object. "Get out of my way!" The State Preceptor roared in the Space Divine Object and drove it toward the barrier. With a loud bang, the barrier immediately distorted. However, at this moment, Qin Feiyong suddenly looked up, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he grabbed Zhao Tailai's axe and used the Xing formula. He rushed to Fourth Grandpa's side and used his divine mind. Then, he raised his giant axe and slashed at the Space Divine Object. With a loud bang, the Space Divine Object was split in half on the spot. The State Preceptor fell out in a sorry state. Fourth Grandpa didn't disperse the barrier and trapped him inside. "You had time to escape before, but you didn't. Now that Zhuge Mingyang is dead, you want to escape. Do you think I'll give you the chance?" Qin Feiyong looked at the State Preceptor coldly. The State Preceptor looked at Qin Feiyong and Fourth Grandpa with fear between his brows. He didn't even have the thought of breaking the barrier and escaping. On the other side, Zhao Tailai and the other two finally stopped. This time, not a single strand of hair was left on Zhuge Mingyang's body. It could be said that he was truly crushed into ashes. Qin Feiyong said, "Find his spatial divine item." "Understood." Zhao Tailai nodded and sent his divine sense downwards. After Zhuge Mingyang died, the spatial divine item became an ownerless item. One had to know. This spatial divine item could even withstand the power of the Rule of God's miracle. One could see how high its level was. Therefore, he could not miss this opportunity. Outside the barrier, Fourth Grandpa looked at the State Preceptor and asked, "Feiyong, should we kill him?" "You can't kill him. I still need to get the location of the Fiend Ancestor's lair from him. Speak, where is the lair of the Demon Ancestor?" Qin Feiyong looked at the Imperial Preceptor and said, he wanted nothing more than to chop this person into pieces right now. The reason for that was because it had always been this person who had been causing trouble behind the scenes. It could be said that, without the State Preceptor, many things in the past would not have happened. But Grandpa, Mermaid Princess, Lin Yi, and Old Master Ren, these people must be saved. Therefore, he must find the lair of the Demon Ancestor. Do you think I will be naive enough to tell you? If I tell you, will I still have a way out? The State Preceptor calmed down and sneered. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyong's eyes, and he smiled coldly. "It seems that I have to let you have a taste of the puppet technique." The puppet technique could not only control others but also forcibly read the other party's memory. As long as the State Preceptor was controlled, there was no need to interrogate him to know the location of the Demon Ancestor's lair. Puppet technique? Fourth Grandpa heard it and looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. But the State Preceptor's body trembled. Although he had never been to the Black Tortoise world, he had learned about the puppet technique from Zhuge Mingyang. Qin Feiyong stepped into the barrier. "Go to hell." Just as Qin Feiyong entered the barrier, the State Preceptor suddenly exploded and slammed his palm toward Qin Feiyong. "Before entering the miracle, I wasn't afraid of you, let alone now." Qin Feiyong raised his arm. His 5 fingers were like an eagle's claw, grabbing the State Preceptor's arm. His other hand then slapped the State Preceptor's lower abdomen. "Ah!" Accompanied by a pig-like scream, the State Preceptor's sea of qi shattered on the spot. His lower abdomen was also badly mutilated. "Terrifying," Fourth Grandpa murmured. The State Preceptor was also a god of war, but he couldn't even resist. What level has this kid's strength reached? The State Preceptor was even more frightened. In the beginning, Qin Feiyong was just an ant-like character in front of him. But now, the other party destroyed his sea of qi with just one blow. In his heart, in addition to fear, there was also shame. After destroying the State Preceptor, Qin Feiyong immediately formed a seal. After all, The demon ancestor wasn't dead yet. Changes could happen at any time. Only by controlling the state preceptor as fast as possible could he avoid these changes. The state preceptor sighed. If Zhuge Mingyang was half as nimble as you, he wouldn't have ended up dead. Wrong. Even if he acted decisively before, there wouldn't be any turning point. This is strength. Qin Feiyong shook his head. The puppet imprint turned into a stream of light and rushed toward the state preceptor's head. Boom. However, at this moment, a terrifying aura emerged. The barrier set up by Fourth Grandpa was shattered on the spot. Who is it? Fourth Grandpa roared and looked up. He saw a blood-red beast pouncing toward the puppet imprint like lightning. Boom. The puppet imprint was immediately shattered by the beast's claw. Following that, the beast directly used its divine power to break the state preceptor's arm that was grabbed by Qin Feiyong. Then it stretched out its claws, grabbed the state preceptor, and soared into the sky. All of this happened too quickly. Qin Feiyong didn't even have time to fight back before the state preceptor was taken thousands of miles away by the beast. It's you. The state preceptor looked at the beast with a look of ecstasy on his old face. You're really useless. You actually ended up in such a sorry state. The beast glanced at the state preceptor and snorted coldly. Hearing this, the state preceptor lowered his head and the joy on his face turned into anger. Where's Zhuge Mingyang? The beast asked. The state preceptor said, he has already died in the hands of Qin Feiyong and the others. What? In order to train him, Master paid such a huge price and even passed on the immortal demon technique and the 6 words killing formula to him. He actually died just like that? The beast said angrily. Not only will he die, you will die too. All of a sudden, a monstrous murderous intent erupted. That ferocious beast raised its head and looked at Qin Feiyong. Its blood-red eyes were filled with contempt. At the same time, Qin Feiyong also stared at the beast, his body full of hostility. He was in such a hurry to control the state preceptor because he was afraid that an accident would happen. Unexpectedly, the accident still happened. As for that ferocious beast, it was no ordinary ferocious beast. Its body was 5 meters long and its fur was as red as blood. It looked exactly like a Kirin. It was the legendary blood Kirin. Feiyong. Young master. Old man Qin quickly flew to Qin Feiyong and Fourth Grandpa's side. In Zhao Tailai's hand was a palm-sized black castle. Did you find the space treasure? Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice. His murderous eyes were fixed on the blood Kirin. Zhao Tailai nodded and handed the castle in his hand to Qin Feiyong. Ha! When the blood Kirin saw the black castle, its eyebrows suddenly raised. It looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Bring that castle to me." What? Zhao Tailai and the others were stunned. Was this bastard dreaming? Qin Feiyong grabbed the castle. Without any suspense, this was Zhuge Mingyang's space treasure. He looked at the blood Kirin and said, "If you want the castle, give me the state preceptor." The blood Kirin laughed and said, "Kid, you can't be so naive." Boom. As soon as it finished speaking, the blood Kirin's aura was fully released. A shocking divine power rushed towards Qin Feiyong and the others. This aura! Old man Qin's eyes trembled as he exclaimed, "Small success, war god." The blood Kirin looked at old man Qin and laughed. "Old man, at least you have some eyesight." "Feiyong, what should we do now?" Old man Qin was at a loss. A small success war god beast and a subordinate of the demon ancestor. Its methods were definitely not ordinary. Qin Feiyong looked at the blood Kirin. He did not expect its cultivation to be so strong. However, a small success war god was not without a chance of winning. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. But just as he was about to make a move, the blood Kirin grinned and said, "Also, I will add another bargaining chip." As soon as it finished speaking, a stone coffin flew out from its body. This stone coffin. Old man Qin and the others were shocked. The stone coffin that the blood Kirin took out was the stone coffin that sealed the demon ancestor's divine body. Do you want to know what's inside? The blood Kirin teased. It's definitely not the demon ancestor's divine body. Old man Qin muttered. Qin Feiyong, open your eyes and watch carefully. The blood Kirin waved its claws and the stone coffin stood upright. Then, it opened the lid and a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of them. Crack! Qin Feiyong clenched his hands tightly. Because the middle-aged man in the stone coffin was one of the people he respected the most in his life, Yan Nanshan. At this moment, Yan Nanshan's face was pale and his eyes were closed. His aura was extremely weak. The Blood Kirin said, "Do you still recognize him?" Qin Feiyong's face was gloomy. The Blood Kirin said, "Don't worry. He's not dead yet. His Sea of Qi has been destroyed and he's in a coma." "What do you want?" Qin Feiyong asked. The Blood Kirin said playfully, "Aren't you asking the obvious? Use the castle to trade." Qin Feiyong was silent. "You have no choice. If you don't do as I say, I will kill him. Don't doubt my words." The Blood Kirin said. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice, "The demon ancestor should be merging with the divine body right now." "Smart." The Blood Kirin said. "That's nothing to praise. You brought the stone coffin here to tell me that the demon ancestor is merging with the divine body, right?" Qin Feiyong said. The Blood Kirin was shocked. Then it laughed and said, "You can see through that? Master was right. You are not someone to be underestimated. If the demon ancestor is merging with the divine body, shouldn't you be protecting him in the reincarnation sea? Why are you here?" Qin Feiyong asked. "It's because of Zhuge Mingyang. Master saw that Zhuge Mingyang hadn't sent back any news after so long, so he sent me here to take a look. But I didn't expect that guy to be so useless. You killed him. What a waste of Master's efforts." The Blood Kirin grunted coldly. It looked angry. Chapter 1795. What a waste of effort. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and mumbled. His eyes looked cold as he looked at the Blood Kirin and the Grandmaster. He said, "You two destroyed Zhuge Mingyang." "We destroyed him?" The Blood Kirin was shocked. "Yes. Although you gave him great power, you also made him cold-blooded and heartless. So, you have no right to judge him." Qin Feiyong grunted coldly. "I did not expect you to sympathize with an enemy." The Blood Kirin was very surprised. "I am not sympathizing with him. I just feel bad for him. With his talent, even without your help, he would have become a hero sooner or later. But he foolishly chose a path of no return. He chose to work with trash like you." Qin Feiyong's eyes were full of disgust. "We are trash?" When the Blood Kirin heard this, it laughed and said, "Of course, you are crazy. But I think you have the wrong person. I am not like that piece of trash Zhuge Mingyang. You have to pay a price for being so arrogant in front of me." After that, the Blood Kirin's eyes looked ferocious. God power appeared, and it cut off Yan Nanshan's arm. Blood flowed out of the coffin. The intense pain caused Yan Nanshan to wake up from his coma. His face was contorted from the pain. Feiyong. But when he saw Qin Feiyong, he forgot about the pain. "Uncle Yan. I am sorry. I dragged you into this." Qin Feiyong looked at Yan Nanshan, his face full of self-blame. If it wasn't for him, Demon Alpha wouldn't have attacked them. "What are you talking about?" Yan Nanshan shouted angrily. He shook his head and sighed. "Feiyong, we dragged you into this. We are like a burden to you." "No. Whether it is you or the old man, you are all my most respected elders. In the past you protected me. Now it is my turn to protect you," Qin Feiyong said. "Ha ha. This is so touching." The Blood Kirin laughed. "Blood Kirin." Yan Nanshan's eyes trembled as he roared, "Feiyong, don't worry about me. Do what you have to do. Don't let me become your burden." Qin Feiyong smiled at Yan Nanshan. He looked at the Blood Kirin and said, "I agree. You should have done this a long time ago. Bring it over quickly." The Blood Kirin laughed. Qin Feiyong placed the Black Castle in front of Tang Hai and said, "Send it over." Tang Hai looked at Qin Feiyong, and his eyes flashed. He didn't say a word and took the castle. Then, he flew over to the Blood Kirin and the Grandmaster. The Imperial Tutor glanced at Tang Hai, his eyes full of vigilance. He reminded in a low voice, "Lord Qilin, be careful of their tricks." "Are you looking down on me? This emperor is a low-level war god. Why would I be afraid of their tricks?" The Blood Kirin raised its eyebrows and glared at the Grandmaster. "I don't dare." The State Preceptor quickly lowered his head. His eyes filled with fear. He was Demon Alpha's subordinate, so he knew what the blood Kirin was capable of. It could be said that this beast was a demon that ate people without spitting out the bones. Even if it was its companion, if they angered it, it wouldn't show any mercy. Humph! The blood Kirin grunted coldly. It raised its head and looked at Tang Hai. There was a sinister smile in its blood-red eyes. Swoosh! Tang Hai flew over and stopped a few feet away from the blood Kirin. He looked at Yan Nanshan and said coldly, "Let him go first." However, the blood Kirin responded with a blast of god power. Arg! The god power rushed into the stone coffin. Yan Nanshan screamed in pain as his other arm was broken. The blood Kirin laughed cruelly. "Don't test my patience again. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. Didn't you hear me?" Yan Nanshan shouted angrily. Tang Hai looked at Yan Nanshan and sighed. "Although I don't know what your relationship with the young master is, based on his behavior, I can tell that you used to be very good to him. The young master is a righteous person. Now that you are in trouble, how could he stand by and watch you die? Being righteous isn't necessarily a good thing." Yan Nanshan said gloomily. "Yes, I admit that. But do you know why old Zhao and I followed him? It's precisely because he values relationships and righteousness. Maybe he will lose a lot because of this, but he will also gain a lot." After Tang Hai spoke, he waved his hand. The black castle in his hand flew toward the blood Kirin. "Why didn't you do this earlier? You made Yan Nanshan suffer so much." The blood Kirin reached out its claws and grabbed the black castle. It laughed mockingly. Whoosh! But just as it spoke, Tang Hai suddenly jumped up. He was like a ghost as he landed on top of the blood Kirin's head. A black dagger appeared in a flash. He grabbed the dagger and stabbed it toward the blood Kirin's head. At the same time, Qin Feiyong used the walk word and flew toward the stone coffin. That was right. Tang Hai's attack had been ordered by him. Although he hadn't said it explicitly, Tang Hai understood what he meant. Why had Qin Feiyong attacked? It was because the blood Kirin's words couldn't be trusted. The most important thing was that Yan Nanshan had been to the demon Alpha's lair. If Yan Nanshan returned to Qin Feiyong, he would definitely tell Qin Feiyong where the demon Alpha's lair was. Because of that, the blood Kirin wasn't going to give Yan Nanshan back to Qin Feiyong. It could only take him by surprise. However, in the face of Tang Hai's sudden attack, the blood Kirin didn't panic at all. On the contrary, its eyes were full of contempt. After grabbing the black castle, it immediately teleported with the Grandmaster and appeared thousands of miles away. Tang Hai was a little annoyed, but he didn't chase after them, because their goal was only to save Yan Nanshan. Now that the blood Kirin had escaped, there was no way to stop them. Whoosh! Qin Feiyong flew over and landed in front of the stone coffin. He smiled and said, "Uncle Yan, you are safe." "Feiyong, I am sorry. I am really sorry." Yan Nanshan didn't feel happy about being saved. Instead, he felt guilty. Tang Hai looked at the blood Kirin in the distance and said, "Young master, quickly send Yan Nanshan to the Black Tortoise world." The blood Kirin wouldn't give up so easily. As a low-level warlord, the blood Kirin wasn't something that the Grandmaster and the others could compare to. Wait. A fierce battle was unavoidable. Therefore, they had to send Yan Nanshan away immediately. The Black Tortoise world was a safer place than the ancient castle. Qin Feiyong nodded and was about to take Yan Nanshan into the Black Tortoise world. Boom! But suddenly, a terrifying aura erupted from Yan Nanshan's arms. Immediately after, two streams of light shot out from Yan Nanshan's clothes and blasted towards Qin Feiyong and Tang Hai's chests. Boom! The two of them were hit hard and flew out like meteorites. Their chests were caved in and their flesh was badly mangled. Another ambush? The two of them were shocked. Haha. Do you think that only I came? The blood Kirin laughed in the distance. Qin Feiyong and Tang Hai steadied themselves and looked up. They saw two ferocious beasts that were a few meters long floating in front of the stone coffin. One of them was as blue as the sea and the other was as black as ink. They looked exactly the same as the blood Kirin. Water Kirin. Ink Kirin. Qin Feiyong said each word slowly and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The demon ancestor had so many godly beasts under his command? The water Kirin, the ink Kirin, and the blood Kirin were all types of Kirins. They had noble bloodlines and extraordinary talents. As long as they didn't die prematurely, they would become the most powerful beings in the world. However, they all submitted to the demon ancestor. How powerful was the demon ancestor when he was at his peak? The water Kirin and the ink Kirin in front of them had the aura of a low-level warlord. Although they were weaker than the blood Kirin, they weren't ordinary godly beasts. They were Kirin godly beasts with noble bloodlines. Their strength could be said to be stronger than any beginner battle god. Yan Nanshan looked at the two godly beasts in front of him and his face was filled with shock and fear. Obviously, he hadn't noticed before that the water Kirin and the ink Kirin were hiding in his clothes. Shwa! The blood Kirin teleported and landed next to the water Kirin and the ink Kirin. He laughed and said, "Qin Feiyong, you really are a difficult person to deal with. If it wasn't for my master's foresight, you would have succeeded this time." Demon Ancestor. Qin Feiyong's face was as dark as water. Yes, this was all my master's plan. Seeing that there was no news from Zhuge Mingyang after so long, my master guessed that you might have returned and asked me to come and take a look. Just in case, my master asked me to bring Yan Nanshan and told the water Kirin and ink Kirin to shrink their bodies and hide in Yan Nanshan's clothes. At first, I thought that my master's actions were completely unnecessary. With me here, why would he need the water Kirin and ink Kirin? I didn't think that they would actually come in handy. The blood Kirin laughed. The water Kirin glanced at the blood Kirin and grunted coldly. Don't think too highly of yourself. That's right. If it weren't for us, Yan Nanshan would have been saved. When you go back, you will be punished by my master. The ink Kirin laughed coldly. Although their cultivation levels were lower than the blood Kirin's, their status beside the demon ancestor was the same as the blood Kirin's. However, the blood Kirin had become a low-level war god before them. Yes. This is my fault. I shouldn't have underestimated this person. In the face of the dissatisfaction and mockery from the water Kirin and ink Kirin, the blood Kirin wasn't angry. He just nodded and smiled. The water Kirin turned and looked at Qin Feiyong. He asked, "Do you really want Yan Nanshan?" Qin Feiyong looked at Yan Nanshan in the sarcophagus. "Feiyong, you have to listen to me. Don't be led by the nose by these animals. I am not afraid of death. Old Man Ran and the others are not afraid of death either. You have to go all out. Only then will you have a chance to kill them and return peace to the Qin Empire. Anyway, don't be afraid because of us. If you do, we won't be happy. We will blame ourselves even more. Do you understand?" Yan Nanshan smiled. He looked gratified and proud. Who wouldn't be proud to have such an outstanding descendant? Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. Mobile reading website, M. Chapter 1796. Uncle Yen, Qin Feiyong murmured. A strong sense of unease welled up in his heart. When Qin Feiyong didn't answer, Yan Nanshan said angrily, "I'm asking you, do you understand?" "I understand." Qin Feiyong's body shook as he nodded. "It's good that you understand." Yan Nanshan laughed again. He then looked at the blood Kirin and the other two beasts and roared, "Don't even think about using me to threaten Qin Feiyong. Sooner or later, all of you will pay the price for everything you've done." The three beasts turned to look at Yan Nanshan in shock. Just as they turned, Yan Nanshan slammed his head into the stone coffin. Clang! Crack! With a deafening sound, Yan Nanshan's head exploded, and he died instantly. "Uncle Yen," Qin Feiyong roared, his teeth bared. Looking at the man slowly falling to the ground, fourth grandpa, Tang Hai, and the others were filled with sorrow. In the distance, when Emperor Hong, the emperor, and Qin Shang saw this scene, an unresolvable sadness rose in their hearts. Damn it! The blood Kirin and the other two beasts were furious. They hadn't expected Yan Nanshan to be so stubborn as to commit suicide. How much courage did that take? The blood Kirin said angrily, "Water Kirin, ink Kirin, what were you doing? Don't you know how to suppress him? Who was the one who was so cocky? How dare you talk about us?" The two beasts turned hostile and glared at the blood Kirin. Boom! All of a sudden, a monstrous murderous aura surged out like a huge wave, shrouding the entire area. Ha! The three beasts were shocked. They turned to look at Qin Feiyong, and their pupils shrank. At that moment, Qin Feiyong's eyes were blood red. His body was also surrounded by blood-red flames. That was his murderous aura. Looking at Qin Feiyang's eyes, the Blood Kirin and the other two beasts felt a chill run down their spines. Their hearts were filled with fear. Go! The Blood Kirin roared and brought out a teleport door. Don't even think about going anywhere. All of you stay here. Qin Feiyang smiled savagely. He grabbed the rusty axe and teleported toward the three beasts. At the same time as he teleported, he also used the Xing character technique. One could imagine how fast he was right now. Even the Blood Kirin, who was a low-level war god, couldn't track him. Before the portal opened, Qin Feiyang appeared in front of the three beasts. So fast. The Blood Kirin was shocked. This speed was something that even it could not catch up to. No wonder Zhuge Mingyang died in his hands. However, the Blood Kirin wasn't Zhuge Mingyang. You're courting death. After the Blood Kirin calmed down, it made a decision. It gave the Grandmaster and the castle to the Water Kirin and the Black Kirin. Then, it swung its claws at Qin Feiyang. The rift collapsed on the spot. The power was not something a low-level war god could compare to. The Water Kirin and the Black Kirin looked at each other and immediately took the Grandmaster and the Black Castle away. Don't let them escape! Zhao Tailai roared. Whether it was Fourth Grandpa, Old Qin, Zhao Tailai, or Tang Hai, they were all angry. But because Yan Nanshan was in the Blood Kirin's hands, they didn't dare to make a move. But now, Yan Nanshan had committed suicide, so there was nothing to worry about. Their target was not the Blood Kirin either. Qin Feiyang alone was enough to deal with the Blood Kirin. After all, the Blood Kirin was a low-level war god. If they interfered, they might become a burden to Qin Feiyang. Swoosh! They went straight for the Water Kirin and the Black Kirin. As for the Hong Emperor, he brought the Emperor and the other two and flew towards Yan Nanshan's corpse. He couldn't participate in the battle. Because the Emperor and the other two's ocean of qi had not been repaired yet. He had to protect the four of them. Look at Qin Feiyang. Facing the Blood Kirin's full attack, he didn't dodge at all. He raised his axe and chopped at the Blood Kirin's claw. With a crack, the Blood Kirin's claw broke on the spot. This axe! The Blood Kirin turned pale with fright. It hadn't recovered, but it was still so sharp. The Water Kirin and the Black Kirin were shocked when they saw the Blood Kirin injured. The Black Kirin said in a deep voice, "Don't worry about it. Let's go." The Water Kirin immediately opened a portal. "Don't run if you have guts." Seeing this, Zhao Tailai shouted, "Do you think we are stupid?" The Water Kirin sneered and entered the portal without looking back. "Don't worry, we will be back soon. Then, it will be the end of these people." The Black Kirin glanced at Zhao Tailai and the others coldly and also rushed into the portal. Damn it, damn it! Zhao Tailai roared. Although he, Tang Hai, Old Qin, and Fourth Grandpa were all war gods, the Water Kirin and the Black Kirin were also war gods. And they didn't have a heaven-defying auxiliary magic like the Xing formula. So in terms of speed, they had no advantage. They could only watch the two beasts leave. "Follow me!" Old Qin shouted and opened the portal. "Where are we going?" Zhao Tailai was suspicious. The Sea of Reincarnation. Old Qin's eyes flashed coldly as he stepped into the portal. Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai looked at each other and followed. Fourth Grandpa stood in front of the portal and turned to look at Second Grandpa and Third Grandpa. Second Grandpa and Third Grandpa nodded at Fourth Grandpa. Immediately, Fourth Grandpa also rushed into the portal. So, only Qin Feiyang and the Blood Kirin were left in the sky. What kind of axe is this? It is so scary. The Blood Kirin looked at the axe in horror. This axe is going to kill you. Qin Feiyang grinned. There was a murderous look between his eyebrows. He raised the axe and slashed at the Blood Kirin. You want to kill me? You are still far from that. The Blood Kirin laughed angrily. The Blood Kirin's body flashed and a blood-red soft armor appeared. Clang! The blade of the axe struck the soft armor, immediately creating dazzling sparks. However, the soft armor wasn't damaged at all. Instead, it was Qin Feiyang who was sent flying. His arm was also numb from the shock. What? When Lu Zhang and Second Grandpa saw this, they were shocked. Even the Blood Kirin's body could not withstand the power of the axe. But now, the soft armor had blocked it. What kind of weapon was this? Mid-grade? High-grade? Top grade? Boy, aside from this axe, what else do you have? The Blood Kirin's eyes were full of disdain. He teleported and appeared behind Qin Feiyong. Then, he used his claws to attack Qin Feiyong's back. Although one of his claws had been broken, he still had 3 claws. Also, the broken claw was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. I don't have many skills, but I can kill you. Qin Feiyong was furious. His blood-red eyes were full of murderous intent. The purple gold dragon's soul roared and activated its talent. The Emperor Prison? I am a low-level god of war. Do you think you can imprison me? The Blood Kirin laughed disdainfully. However, when the Emperor Prison fell, the Blood Kirin's mind suddenly went blank. The Emperor Prison cannot imprison you. But this new ability can even take away the consciousness of a peak god of war, let alone someone like you. Qin Feiyong stepped into the Emperor Prison and shouted, "Go and die with Uncle Yen!" Boom! He grabbed the axe with both hands and used all his strength to attack the Blood Kirin's forehead. The Blood Kirin shuddered. Apparently, he had regained his consciousness. After all, the Blood Kirin's cultivation level was higher than Zhuge Mingyang's. The time he could take away his consciousness was shorter. However, for Qin Feiyong, it was enough. Because now, even if the Blood Kirin wanted to dodge, it was too late. Clang! The axe hit the Blood Kirin's forehead. Sparks flew everywhere. Qin Feiyong was sent flying again. The skin between his thumb and forefinger split open and blood flowed out. He looked at the Blood Kirin's soft armor. There was only one mark. It hadn't even cracked. How is that possible? Qin Feiyong looked at the axe in his hand and then looked at the Blood Kirin's forehead. His eyes were full of disbelief. This time, he had used all his strength, but he still couldn't break the soft armor. Could it be a supreme quality sacred artifact? At the same time, the Blood Kirin looked around. Its red eyes were full of fear. I didn't expect the Emperor Prison to be so scary. If it wasn't for the Kirin armor, I would have died at your hands. The Blood Kirin looked at Qin Feiyong and laughed. Kirin armor. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. You don't know yet. The Kirin armor is a supreme quality sacred artifact. In this world, no one can break the defense of the Kirin armor. No. Your Chong Xue and the castle should be able to break it. But unfortunately, according to what this emperor knows, pale snow seemed to have been snatched away by a little beast at the divine site, and the castle seems to have been sealed. The Blood Kirin laughed. What? Chong Xue was stolen and the castle was sealed? Zheng is that true? Second and third grandpa's expressions changed. They turned to look at Lu Zheng. The emperor and the other two also looked at Emperor Hong in surprise. It's true. Lu Zheng and Emperor Hong nodded. How could this be? Hearing that, the emperor, second grandpa, and third grandpa couldn't help but turn pale. Stealing Chong Xue and sealing the castle. Just how terrifying was that little beast's strength? Without Chong Xue, we can't break the defense of the soft armor. Grandpa, go help. Use your heavenly great sword. The emperor looked at Emperor Hong anxiously. Heavenly great sword is not as strong as that axe. Besides, in this situation if I get involved, I will only drag Feiyong down. Emperor Hong shook his head. Then what should we do? The emperor was worried. Don't panic. We have to believe in Feiyong. He must have a way to defeat the Blood Kirin. Emperor Hong clenched his hands and said, a top-quality divine artifact. High in the sky. Qin Feiyong glanced at the Kirin armor, his eyes flickering. How is it? Do you feel desperate now? The Blood Kirin laughed. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and put away the axe. After the previous confrontation, his mind slowly calmed down, and he said, the Sky Devil flag is also a top-quality divine artifact, right? That's right. The Blood Kirin nodded, but suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked around in surprise. He muttered, wait, why don't I see the Sky Devil flag? Although Zhuge Mingyang was dead, the Sky Devil flag should still be there, right? After all, it was a top-quality divine artifact. Qin Feiyong didn't have the ability to destroy it. Could it be? It suddenly looked at Qin Feiyong. Did it fall into the hands of this person? Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. Mobile version of reading website, M. Chapter 1797. I know what you're thinking. But I'm not interested in the Sky Demon flag at all. I just want to destroy it. But it ran away. Qin Feiyong said. Ran away? The Blood Kirin was stunned. It couldn't even speak properly. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Ha. The Sky Demon flag is a supreme-grade divine artifact. How could it run away? This is the biggest joke in the world. There should be a limit to bragging. Bragging like this will only make people laugh their heads off. The Blood Kirin raised its head and laughed. Its laughter was full of sarcasm. However, the next moment, its body stiffened, and its laughter stopped abruptly as it looked behind Qin Feiyong in shock. In the void behind Qin Feiyong, several figures appeared out of thin air. These people, whether it was their appearance or their clothes, were exactly the same as Qin Feiyong. This is... The Blood Kirin's face was full of disbelief. 3,000 clones. Qin Feiyong said. I know it's 3,000 clones. I also know that you took them from Zhuge Mingyang. But it's only been a few years. How can you create so many clones? The Blood Kirin said. After counting carefully, there were 300 to 400 clones. And it was still increasing. Do you still need to ask? Of course, it's because I'm smart. Qin Feiyong said expressionlessly. Finally, all 500 clones appeared behind Qin Feiyong. The Blood Kirin said, 500 clones. It's just as Master said. Not one more, not one less. Since the demon ancestor already told you, why do you look so surprised? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, what you hear may be false, but seeing is believing. The Blood Kirin said. That's true. Qin Feiyong nodded. Boom. The next moment, accompanied by a terrifying aura, 500 statues appeared. Heaven and earth shook. There's no sign of hand seals. The dragon god skill has evolved to a perfect skill. The Blood Qilin mumbled. In fact, it basically knew Qin Feiyong's methods. This was because the ancestral fiend's consciousness had returned to the reincarnation sea after leaving the divine ruin. Answer me a question. Qin Feiyong looked at the Blood Kirin coldly. What is it? The Blood Kirin frowned. Qin Feiyong asked, when I was still at the divine site, the divine beast that appeared in the imperial palace, was it you? That's me. The Blood Kirin said proudly. In other words, it was you who forced my father to order the commander of the Kirin army to enter the Lu family and awaken Zhuge Shenfeng? Qin Feiyong said. Yes, it's me. This emperor still wants to destroy the Lu family so that you won't even have the chance to collect your corpse. The Blood Kirin sneered. Its eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty light. Then why didn't you do it? Qin Feiyong asked. Although the Lu family had a Baisima, the ancestral fiend didn't know about it. If the ancestral fiend had known, he wouldn't have allowed Zhuge Mingyang and the Grandmaster to destroy the Lu family. The Blood Kirin said, it was because of the Master's orders. The ancestral fiend's orders? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said, then why did he let Zhuge Mingyang and the Grandmaster come? Because the Master has already retrieved the divine body. He let Zhuge Mingyang and the Grandmaster come because he wanted to see the Lu family's power. He also wanted to test someone's attitude. The Blood Kirin said. Someone? Who? Qin Feiyong was surprised. It wasn't hard to understand what the Blood Kirin was saying. The ancestral fiend was very afraid of this person. And this person was related to the Lu family. Otherwise, why would the ancestral fiend test him? This person's identity is different. I don't know if I should tell you. The Blood Kirin hesitated. Who is he? Even the ancestral fiend is afraid of him. I can't believe there is someone like him in this world. Qin Feiyong said. The Blood Kirin laughed and said, if you can beat me, I will tell you. Okay. Qin Feiyong waved his hand. The 500 statues picked up their broken swords and charged at the Blood Kirin. The sky and earth suddenly lost its color. The sky was filled with wind and clouds. Aside from the Master, you are the first person to have a perfect divine skill. Don't disappoint me. After he said that, the Blood Kirin's body started to grow. What? The ancestral fiend has a perfect divine skill. Qin Feiyong was shocked. Of course. Otherwise, Why would Mu Tianyang and Mu Tianjun ask Qin Batian to join forces? You will never be able to imagine the master's power. True God body, open! The blood Kirin roared into the sky. Its body, which had already grown to a height of a few dozen meters, suddenly stood up like a human. Its muscles bulged. The hair on his body stood on end. The Kirin's armor also grew as the blood Kirin's body grew. At this moment, it looked like a giant wearing battle armor, and its body was filled with a destructive aura. Clang! The 500 statues had already arrived. The broken sword's light was earth-shattering. It destroyed everything in its path. Dragon God spell. I want to see how strong it is after evolving to a perfect divine skill. The blood Kirin raised its claws and punched the first statue. It is not dodging. Qin Feiyong was surprised. The blood Kirin was too confident. Boom! Clang! At this moment, the blood Kirin's claws were several times bigger than a millstone. It punched the broken sword. There was a deafening sound that filled the sky. Catcha! The next moment, under Qin Feiyong's horrified gaze, cracks actually appeared on the broken sword. In less than 3 breaths, the broken sword broke into pieces and turned into pure divine power that floated in the air. How is that possible? Qin Feiyong shook his head. He could not accept this. At the same time, although the blood Kirin had shattered the broken sword, it was also sent flying by the power of the broken sword. Also, although it was protected by the soft armor, drops of divine blood still dripped from the corners of its mouth. You were able to hurt me. You are indeed strong. No wonder Zhuge Mingyang and the Grandmaster were not able to defeat you. However, since I dared to stay here, that means I am not afraid of you. The blood Kirin looked at Qin Feiyong and laughed. Then it stepped forward. It was like a beast in human form as it attacked the statues. There was a loud rumbling sound. The broken sword kept shattering. The statues kept disintegrating. It was like an invincible god of war. Although it was sent flying by the broken sword again and again, it did not look weak at all. The more Qin Feiyong looked, the more frightened he became. Was this the power of the Kirin? One had to know. Previously, even the Sky Demon flag had fled at the sight of these statues. But now, the blood Kirin was not at a disadvantage. No. The blood Kirin was powerful not only because of its bloodline power. It could not reach this level with just its bloodline power. The biggest reason was the Kirin armor on the blood Kirin's body and the true god body that the blood Kirin had activated. This true god body was also a divine art. And its level was not low. In other words, it was because of the Kirin armor, the true god body, and the bloodline power of the Kirin that the blood Kirin was so powerful. Rumble. As the statues were shattered, the blood Kirin's aura became more and more terrifying. Its expression was full of confidence and contempt for Qin Feiyong. The emperor said in a deep voice, "The blood Kirin's power is beyond imagination. After all, it is the Kirin. If it was an ordinary beast, even if they had the same cultivation level as the blood Kirin, they would only be able to run away in the face of Fei Yang's 3,000 clones and the dragon god art." Emperor Hong sighed. He was worried. Inside the enchantment, second grandpa, third grandpa, and the other members of the Lu family were also worried. Lu Zheng noticed this scene. He looked at the people around him and smiled at second grandpa and third grandpa. You don't have to worry. What do you mean? The two of them looked at Lu Zheng suspiciously. Lu Zheng looked at Qin Feiyong and laughed. Cousin, you haven't shown your trump card yet. Trump card. Second grandpa and third grandpa looked at each other. Maybe he doesn't even need to use his trump card to kill the blood Kirin. Lu Zheng mumbled. Rumble. Finally. The last statue was also shattered. A perfect divine art is just a... The blood Kirin laughed. Then, it swooped down and attacked Qin Feiyong. That terrifying aura, that boundless divine power, intimidated the hearts of everyone present. Qin Feiyong was very calm. He asked, what level of divine art is the true god body? High-tier divine art. The blood Kirin laughed evilly. High-tier divine art. No wonder it is so strong. Qin Feiyong nodded. Although the god dragon skill was a perfect divine art, the blood Kirin's cultivation level was 1 level higher than his. Plus, the true god body was a top-tier divine art. It made up for the difference. But the true god body and the Kirin armor. These divine arts and weapons were very suitable for the white-eyed wolf. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He looked at the blood Kirin and said, "Give me the Kirin armor and the true god body, and I will leave you with a full corpse." What? The blood Kirin was shocked. "Give me the Kirin armor and the true god body?" Qin Feiyang said, "You heard me. I want you to give me the Kirin armor and the true god body." Huh. The blood Kirin looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. It asked, "Are you stupid? Why else would you say something like that?" "I am serious," Qin Feiyang said. "I am serious," the blood Kirin mumbled. It was furious and it roared, "You little piece of shit! Who do you think you are talking to?" Qin Feiyang remained silent, and his eyes seemed to be suffused with strands of cold light. "Things have come to this point, and you don't know how to run. Instead, you want my divine arts and weapons. You are so stupid. I don't understand. How can an idiot like you live until this day? But this is the end. I will send you on your way now. It won't be long before your father, your grandfather, your brother, your grandfather. Anyway, everyone who is related to you will accompany you. At least you won't be lonely on the road to hell." The blood Qilin bared its teeth and smiled. Its enormous body charged towards Qin Feiyang like a meteorite with a ferocious aura. Its blood-red eyes flickered with a frightening ferocity. Genius memorized this address in 1 second. Mobile reading website, M. Chapter 1798. "Send me on my way," Qin Feiyang murmured. Just as the blood Kirin was about to attack him, Qin Feiyang used the walk formula to dodge it. The blood Kirin was furious. Why was he so fast? This was not the first time that Qin Feiyang had used the walk formula to dodge its fatal attack. The demon ancestor had told it about the power of the walk formula, but it did not seem to be this powerful. "The last time I fought with Zhuge Mingyang, I was only a false god. At that time, I could not use the power of the walk formula at all. Because the walk formula needs to be supported by divine power. So, after I broke through to the war god realm, the power of the walk formula is not the same as before. Although your cultivation is higher than mine, you can't keep up with my speed. This is the power of the godly art," Qin Feiyang said. The blood Kirin frowned and said, "So, as long as you have the walk formula, you will be invincible?" "That's right." Qin Feiyang nodded. "I see. It seems that killing you is not as easy as I thought. But, you must die today." The blood Kirin raised its head and roared. The blood in its body surged and turned into blood-red flames. It roared, "Don't dodge if you dare." After he finished saying those words, the flames began to surge toward Qin Feiyang from all directions. This was the Kirin's divine flame. It had a terrifying lethality. "As you wish," Qin Feiyang said lightly. Boom. All of a sudden, his aura soared. In the next moment, under everyone's incredulous gaze, Qin Feiyang's cultivation soared to the war god realm. "This is..." Second Grandpa and the others were surprised. "Rising Dragon Formula." Lu Zheng said word by word. "Rising Dragon Formula?" Second Grandpa was stunned and said, "I have heard of this Rising Dragon Formula. It is only a battle formula, right?" There was a huge difference between a battle formula and a divine formula. Although he could still use battle arts after breaking through to the divine battle realm, their power would not be as strong as before. Take the Dragon Ascension incantation as an example. When one's cultivation level was still at the Battle Sage or Battle Emperor realm, it could increase one's cultivation level by a small realm after activating it. However, once he broke through to the Divine War God realm, the amplification effect would be greatly reduced. In other words, it was definitely impossible. It was still the same as before, enough to increase a small cultivation realm. It was indeed a battle art in the past. But when he broke through to the War God level, Little Cousin evolved the Soaring Dragon technique into a deity technique. Lu Zheng smiled. "I see." Second Grandpa suddenly understood. If it was a deity incantation, then there was nothing to say. "Zheng, this should be the trump card you were talking about, right? It is indeed quite terrifying." Third Grandpa smiled. There were many battle arts that could increase one's cultivation in this world. However, deity arts that could increase one's cultivation were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. He didn't know about other places. However, in the Great Qin Empire, he had never encountered a divine technique that could increase one's cultivation. No. Lu Zhang shook his head. What? Third Grandpa was stunned. This answer was completely out of his expectations. This wasn't a trump card? High up in the sky. Seeing Qin Feiyong's cultivation soar to the level of a beginner war god, the Blood Kirin was dumbfounded. It had never expected Qin Feiyong to have such a terrifying trump card. Originally, I wanted to use the soaring dragon technique when I fought with the demon ancestor to give him a surprise. But I didn't expect you to be so strong. So, even if you die, you can die without regrets. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he waved his hand and an invisible force surged out and pounced on the Blood Kirin's divine flame. Boom! When he had just become a war god, he could already compete with the Blood Kirin, let alone now. The Blood Kirin's divine flame was instantly extinguished. Immediately after, Qin Feiyong used the movement formula again. The Blood Kirin couldn't react to that terrifying speed at all. Boom! Qin Feiyong landed behind the Blood Kirin and punched the Blood Kirin's back with the power of the dragon. Roar! With a wail, the Blood Kirin was sent flying. Although the Kirin's armor protected its body, several of the divine bones on its back were shattered. Kid, you are finished. You are completely finished. You will end up in a miserable state. The Blood Kirin stabilized its body and roared like thunder. Roar! A gigantic beast shadow rose from its back. Immediately, a monstrous ferocious aura enveloped the area. That beast shadow was also a Blood Kirin. Its entire body was blood red. But the difference was that the beast shadow's aura was several times more terrifying than the Blood Kirin's. Moreover, in the middle of the beast shadow's eyebrows, there was a palm-sized divine flame pattern. The pattern was blood red, like a blood lotus. This is... Qin Feiyong was stunned as he stared at the divine flame pattern. His eyes were full of surprise. He was no stranger to this divine flame pattern. When he fought with the fire dragon, the fire dragon's fighting soul had the same divine flame pattern in the middle of its eyebrows. According to Yu Huang, that was the ancestral dragon fighting soul. The so-called ancestral dragon was the first divine dragon born between heaven and earth. For example, the fire dragon, the water dragon, the gold dragon, the ice dragon, etc. In other words, these ancestral dragons were the ancestors of various divine dragons. At this moment, the two patterns were exactly the same. The only difference was the color. The fire dragon's ancestral dragon fighting soul had a fiery red divine flame pattern. The Blood Kirin's fighting soul had a blood-red divine flame pattern. What did this mean? It meant that the Blood Kirin's fighting soul was most likely the ancestral Kirin's fighting soul. The Blood Kirin laughed and said, "Looking at your eyes, it seems that you already know what fighting soul this is." Ancestral Kirin. Qin Feiyong said. That's right. Despair. The Blood Kirin laughed loudly. The ancestral Kirin fighting soul roared and pounced on Qin Feiyong. Even Qin Feiyong couldn't help but feel frightened by that terrifying aura. Ancestral Kirin. Fighting soul. Although it is very strong, it is useless against my little cousin. Lu Zhang laughed mockingly. Roar. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and the purple gold dragon's soul roared out. It is useless. The Blood Kirin laughed maniacally. If you had personally witnessed the battle between me and Zhuge Mingyang, you would definitely not have activated your fighting soul in front of me. And you would not have said the word useless. Qin Feiyong said. What do you mean? The Blood Kirin raised his eyebrows. You will understand soon. Qin Feiyong laughed mockingly and opened his eye of heaven. Roar. Immediately. Above Qin Feiyong's head, an ancestral Kirin fighting soul appeared. The aura it exuded was no weaker than the Blood Kirin's fighting soul. What is going on? The Blood Kirin was stunned. Qin Feiyong had also activated the ancestral Kirin fighting soul? Boom. The two fighting souls attacked each other. Their powers were on par. Finally, accompanied by two wails, the two fighting souls disintegrated at the same time. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. The Blood Kirin shook its head. Nothing is impossible in this world. Your powers are indeed terrifying. But compared to me, you are still far from it. You should be the one in despair. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, his 3,000 clones appeared. 500 statues appeared out of thin air. Previously, he could not break the seal on the Kirin armor because his cultivation was not high enough. But now, he was also a beginner war god and was very confident. Clang! As he waved his hand, the 500 statues shook the sky and charged towards the Blood Kirin. Shatter all of them! The Blood Kirin roared angrily and jumped up, punching the statues. However, although the Blood Kirin was not afraid, the Kirin armor on its body was afraid of Qin Fei Yong at this moment. Clang! Just as the Blood Kirin and the statues collided, the Kirin armor took the initiative to fall off the Blood Kirin. Just like the Sky Demon flag, it retreated. The Blood Kirin had never expected this turn of events and its expression changed drastically. Without the protection of the Kirin armor, how could it fight? Immediately. It also wanted to retreat, but it was too late. Boom! Clang! The Blood Kirin's claws and the broken sword collided. The statues were unharmed. The broken sword was also unharmed. However, the Blood Kirin's claws were shattered on the spot and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. Its enormous body was sent flying by the strike. With just one strike, the Blood Kirin was severely injured. However, Qin Fei Yong did not follow up with another attack. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the Kirin armor. Whoosh! The Kirin armor was a supreme-grade divine artifact and had its own consciousness. When it saw Qin Fei Yong's gaze lock onto it, it immediately fled into the sky. Swoosh! Qin Fei Yong smiled coldly and used the walk-word technique. He stepped in front of the Kirin armor and said, "Do you think I will let you slip away like the Sky Demon flag? Now you only have one choice, and that is to submit to me." As he spoke, the 500 divine statues also arrived and surrounded the Qilin's armor. The terrifying sharpness made the Kirin armor despair. It floated in the void and kept trembling. It was afraid. "I will count to 3. If you do not submit, you will be crushed." 3, 2, 1. Qin Fei Yong shouted. The Kirin armor flew in front of Qin Fei Yong in fear and sent out a wave of emotions to submit. Not bad. Qin Fei Yong nodded with satisfaction. Damn it! Seeing this scene, the Blood Kirin was so angry that it almost went crazy. The Kirin armor's betrayal made it lose the courage to continue fighting. It turned around and fled in panic. Qin Fei Yong ignored it. He cut his finger and dripped a drop of purple gold dragon blood onto the Kirin armor. However, unexpectedly, the Kirin armor did not absorb the purple gold dragon blood. What's going on? Qin Fei Yong was surprised. It couldn't bind with blood. Emperor Hong shouted, "Fei Yong, don't worry about it. Go after the Blood Kirin." Qin Fei Yong glanced at the Blood Kirin. The Blood Kirin had already rushed 10,000 miles away and was opening a portal to escape. It can't escape. Qin Fei Yong's eyes flashed with killing intent. He sent the Kirin armor to the Black Tortoise world first and then used teleportation and the walk character art at the same time. His speed was even faster. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the portal, his aura roaring with destruction. There was no need for him to do anything. The portal was shattered. Damn it! The Blood Kirin was shocked and angry. This speed was too ridiculously fast. Rumble! Clang! The 500 incarnations also brought the 500 idols with them to attack. Seeing this, the Blood Kirin's eyes were filled with fear. Qin Fei Yong, who had activated the Soaring Dragon art, was too strong. If the Kirin armor was here, it would have dared to fight. But now, the Kirin armor had betrayed it. With its own strength, it was not confident. Genius memorized this site's address. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 1799. The 500 doppelgangers arrived and surrounded the Blood Kirin. The 500 doppelgangers moved toward the Blood Kirin. The Blood Kirin quickly said, "Qin Fei Yong, let's talk." The corners of Qin Fei Yong's mouth pursed into a mocking smile as he said indifferently, "Can you hand over the true god physique now?" The Blood Kirin said, "Will you let me go if I give you the true god body? Do you really think you have what it takes to negotiate with me?" Qin Fei Yong said. His eyes looked cold. The Blood Kirin's pupils shrank. Then, it rolled its eyes and laughed coldly. "What do you think will happen if I blow myself up here?" "Blow yourself up?" Qin Fei Yong froze. He laughed and said, If you were willing to blow yourself up, why are you talking so much crap to me? The Blood Kirin was annoyed. It had wanted to scare Qin Feiyong and run away. But Qin Feiyong hadn't fallen for it. Not bad. Blowing himself up was suicide. A Kirin like it was a low-level war god. Its life was more important than anything else. Why would it blow itself up? Qin Feiyong said, I'll say it one last time. Give me the true god body. The Blood Kirin roared. No way. Just kill me. Okay, I'll help you. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and pulled out an axe. He twisted the axe and swung it toward the Blood Kirin's forehead. Don't. The Blood Kirin was shocked. It quickly said, Can you give me a chance? I can work for you. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. He spun his arm and swung the axe at the Blood Kirin's belly. Roar! The Blood Kirin screamed as its sea of qi shattered. This time, Qin Feiyong was completely at ease. That was right. His goal wasn't to kill the Blood Kirin, but to destroy its sea of qi. If the Blood Kirin's sea of qi was destroyed, it wouldn't be able to blow itself up. Now, the Blood Kirin realized what had happened. It shouted, You dirty bastard! Qin Feiyong said, In terms of despicableness, I'm still far inferior to the fiend ancestor. Immediately, he formed a seal with both hands, and an enslavement seal appeared. This is... Looking at the slave mark, the Blood Kirin was terrified. However, with its qi crippled and its cultivation crippled, it had no strength to resist at all. It could only watch as the slave seal sank into its head. Ah! The Blood Kirin screamed. Qin Feiyong's eyes were filled with astonishment. After the slave mark entered the Blood Kirin's mind, he immediately sensed that there was another mark inside the Blood Kirin's body. It was the Blood Soul technique. Boom! The slave mark was overbearing. It shattered the Blood Soul spell and took control of the Blood Kirin. After controlling the Blood Kirin, Qin Feiyong frowned. I thought you were willing to work for Demon Alpha? Tisk! How could a Qilin divine beast like this emperor be willing to work for you humans? The Blood Kirin looked at him with disdain. That's true. Qin Feiyong nodded. The Blood Kirin grunted coldly. Don't think that just because you used the slave mark to control me, I will listen to you. Qin Feiyong said, It's not up to you to listen or not. After that, he raised his hands again and formed a seal. Soon, another mark appeared. It was a puppet mark. What is this? The Blood Kirin was shocked. This is a puppet skill. It is a secret control skill that I found in a godly site. This technique can forcibly read your memories and completely strip you of your consciousness, turning you into a puppet. Then, no matter what I ask you to do, you will do it. Qin Feiyong said. When the Blood Kirin heard this, it was terrified. If it really became a puppet, it would be pointless to live. No. Isn't it just a true god body? I will give it to you. We can talk about this. The Blood Kirin said anxiously. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. He dispersed the puppet mark and said, Okay, let me ask you now. Where is the lair of the demon ancestor? The Blood Kirin did not dare to hide it anymore. It said truthfully, he is in the deepest part of the Sea of Reincarnation, a place called Demon Dragon Island. Demon Dragon Island, Qin Feiyong muttered and asked, Can I teleport there directly? No. Demon Dragon Island was once a forbidden area of the Sea of Reincarnation. Not only can you not teleport, but you can also block the search of divine sense. Even Mu Qing's all-seeing eye could not detect the situation of Demon Dragon Island. If you want to enter Demon Island, you can only fly in. The Blood Kirin said. Forbidden area, Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and said, How long do I have to fly? The Blood Kirin said, It only takes half an hour for a war god of small success stage. However, even if you enter Demon Dragon Island, you may not be able to find the demon ancestor. Why? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. Because Demon Dragon Island is too big. I reckon that even 2 imperial capitals combined cannot compare to it. The Blood Kirin said. So big? Qin Feiyong frowned. Yes. Although I know where the demon ancestor is hiding, he must have expected that I have fallen into your hands after you broke the Blood Soul technique. With his cautious personality, he must have moved by now. In other words, even if I take you there now, You will not be able to see him, the Blood Kirin said. Qin Feiyong frowned. Whoosh. At this moment, Old Man Qin and the others returned. Seeing that the Blood Kirin was surrounded by Qin Feiyong's clones, the four of them immediately rushed to Qin Feiyong's side with murderous intent. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, "The Blood Kirin is already under my control." Old Man Qin, Zhao Tailai, and Tang Hai were stunned, but they were not surprised, because they all knew Qin Feiyong's current strength. However, Fourth Grandpa was quite surprised. He could even suppress the Kirin, which was a low-level god of war. What kind of skills did this kid have? Qin Feiyong looked at the four of them and asked, "Did you catch up with the Water Kirin and the Ink Kirin?" "No." Old Man Qin shook his head. "Everything is expected." Qin Feiyong sighed. Once the portal was opened, there was no way to track it, because only the person who opened the portal knew where they would be teleported to. It was even possible that when the Water Kirin and the Ink Kirin opened the portal, they did not go to the Reincarnation Sea to prevent being chased. Taking a step back, even if the Water Kirin and the Ink Kirin did go to the Reincarnation Sea, it was too big. However, the Sea of Reincarnation was too big. Without knowing in advance, who knew where they would be teleported to? "What should we do?" Qin Feiyong frowned. Zhao Tailai looked at Qin Feiyong's expression and frowned. "Young master, the Blood Kirin must know everything. Didn't you ask him?" "I did, but..." Qin Feiyong briefly explained the situation. "Blood Soul Technique? Transfer?" Zhao Tailai raised his eyebrows. It seemed that it was not easy to find the demon ancestor. But in the current situation, they had to find the demon ancestor as soon as possible and stop him from merging with the divine body. Otherwise, when he completely merged with the divine body, a bloody battle would be unavoidable. They might even lose the battle. After all, when they sealed the demon ancestor, Mu Tianyang, Mu Tianjun, and Qin Batian worked together. One could imagine how terrifying this person's strength was. Fourth Grandpa suddenly said, "If he really left the Demon Dragon Island, I have a way to find his whereabouts." "What way?" Qin Feiyong and the others immediately looked at Fourth Grandpa. Fourth Grandpa said, "The Lu family has a divine artifact called the Sky-Stealing Mirror. Like the Sky Eye, it has the ability to spy on everything." "Then let's try it," Zhao Tailai urged. Fourth Grandpa looked down at Second Grandpa in the barrier and said, "Second brother, let them revive the Sky-Stealing Mirror." "Okay." Second Grandpa nodded and instantly disappeared. Whoosh. At this time, Emperor Hong also flew over with the Emperor and the others, holding Yan Nanshan's body in his hand. Looking at Yan Nanshan, Qin Feiyong's body suddenly emitted a monstrous murderous aura. The Blood Kirin next to him immediately showed a strong sense of uneasiness. Yan Nanshan's death was caused by it. Qin Feiyong probably wouldn't let him go easily. Emperor Hong sighed and said, "Feiyong, the dead can't be resurrected. Find a place and bury him." "No. Because one day, he will be resurrected." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "Resurrected?" Emperor Hong was stunned and said in surprise, "Do you want to?" Qin Feiyong nodded. "I won't allow it," Emperor Hong said resolutely. Although he didn't see Qin Feiyong use the fourth move of the Dragon God art in the Black Tortoise realm with his own eyes, he already knew the whole process from Zhuge Mingyang. And as the son of Emperor Qin, he also knew the price to pay to open the fourth move of the Gate of Rebirth. So, he would not allow Qin Feiyong to do such a thing. Opening the Gate of Rebirth was simply an act of suicide. Qin Feiyong looked at Yan Nanshan's face, was silent for a while, then raised his head to look at Emperor Hong, and laughed. "Great-grandfather, don't worry, before I get rid of Demon Ancestor and Mu Tianyang, I won't do that. Even after we get rid of Demon Ancestor and Mu Tianyang, I won't allow you to do that," Emperor Hong said angrily. Qin Feiyong smiled, and brought Yan Nanshan's corpse into the Black Tortoise realm. Seeing this, the Blood Kirin heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he had temporarily saved his life. "Grandfather, what were you and Feiyong talking about just now? It seems to be very serious." The Emperor looked at Emperor Hong suspiciously. Emperor Hong sighed. "You probably don't know about the fourth move of the Dragon God art, right?" The Emperor shook his head. Ever since Emperor Qin left, the Dragon God art had never appeared again, and because the fourth move was too terrifying, there were no records of it left behind in the imperial palace. As a result, other than Emperor Hong, who was the son of Emperor Qin, no one else in the Qin clan knew what the fourth move of the dragon god art was. This fourth move is called the Gate of Rebirth. Emperor Hong sighed deeply, and slowly explained the profound meaning of the Gate of Rebirth. Black Tortoise Realm. Devil's Land. Above the medicine field. Qin Feiyong appeared out of thin air with Yan Nanshan in his arms. Below, the Qilin armor floated in the air. The 9 great beast emperors surrounded the Qilin armor and looked at it curiously. They were all wondering what kind of holy artifact was this, to have such a terrifying aura? What are you doing? Qin Feiyong frowned. Young lord. The 9 great beast emperors quivered and immediately flew in front of Qin Feiyong, bowing respectfully. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded, lowered his head to look at Yan Nanshan, and muttered with a smile. Uncle Yan, don't worry, I will definitely bring you back to life. Finished. He raised his head to look at the 9 great beast emperors and said, Freeze Uncle Yan and take good care of him. Remember, there can be no accidents, or else I will let you all accompany him in death. Yes, sir. The 9 great beast emperors' bodies trembled as they hurriedly bowed and replied. Chapter 1800. Yan Nanshan's death made Qin Feiyong's heart ache. But he also knew that now was not the time to be sad. The great enemy had not been eliminated. No matter how many emotions he had to suppress them. After the 9 divine beasts took Yan Nanshan away, Qin Feiyong retracted his gaze and looked in front of the Kirin armor. He said, Tell me, why can't I drip blood on it? Because the demon ancestor's blood contract is still there. A voice came from the Kirin armor. The voice was full, like that of a young man in his 20s. Hearing this voice, Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked in surprise, You can speak. Even a supreme-grade divine artifact can speak. The Kirin armor said. I see. Qin Feiyong nodded and frowned. You just said that the demon ancestor's blood contract is still there? Yes. The Kirin armor said. Don't lie to me. If the demon ancestor's blood contract is still there, can the blood Kirin revive you? Qin Feiyong said. 4 supreme-grade divine artifacts, as long as we artifact spirits want to, we can revive them even if they don't recognize us as masters. The Kirin armor said. I see. Qin Feiyong nodded in realization and asked, Then wouldn't Blue Snow and the ancient castle also be able to revive without needing to recognize an owner? I haven't seen Xueqi and the castle with my own eyes, but from what Zhuge Mingyang and the others described, they should be beyond the level of supreme-grade divine artifacts. Such divine artifacts can be revived without recognizing us as masters. The Kirin armor said. I see. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. He remembered that when he gave Xueqi and the castle to the willow tree, he would first erase the blood contract. Because he had always thought that no matter what level a divine artifact was, it needed to recognize its master before it could be revived. Only now did he understand. This was the so-called ignorance. In ignorance, one would do a lot of unnecessary things. Qin Feiyong shook his head and asked suspiciously, What was the demon ancestor's cultivation before? The Kirin armor said, Lesser tier war god. He's only a low-level war god? Qin Feiyong was taken aback. His expression was filled with astonishment. He had thought that Demon Alpha was at least a high-level war god or a perfect war god. He hadn't expected her to have the same level of cultivation as the Blood Kirin. I'm talking about 10,000 years ago. He was a war god at the small completion stage. Back then, the Blood Kirin was just a false god. If the devil ancestor wasn't heavily injured back then, he would have reached the level of a perfect war god or even a perfect war god. Qilin Amr said. You're right. Qin Feiyong nodded. All these years, the fiend ancestor had been restoring his divine soul. Moreover, without a divine body, he couldn't cultivate. As a result, his cultivation remained at the same level as it was 10,000 years ago. The Blood Kirin had been practicing all these years, so it was only natural for it to catch up to Demon Alpha. However, this was good news for him. Even though the fiend ancestor had fused with his divine body, he was still only a low-level war god. With his current strength, it should not be difficult to kill the fiend ancestor. Don't think that you can be careless just because the devil ancestor is a low-level war god. You will never be able to imagine his methods. Let me put it this way. With the strength you have shown now, you will only be killed. Moreover, he has a heaven-defying divine artifact. Qilin Amr snorted coldly. Is it that strong? Qin Feiyong frowned. Qilin Amr said, when you fight with him, you will understand how powerful he is. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong immediately stopped underestimating him. Not long ago, the Blood Kirin had said this. Now, the Qilin Armor had said the same thing. It seemed that it was not an alarmist talk. However, the Fiend Ancestor's blood contract could be erased. Qin Feiyong's mind moved. His divine consciousness emerged and entered the Qilin Armor to search for the blood contract. Soon, he found a blood-red mark on the chest of the Qilin Armor. That was the blood contract. Immediately after, he waved his hand, and the power of the dragon surged out and rushed toward the blood contract. However, the process was not as easy as he had imagined. The blood contract was extremely stubborn. It was impossible to erase it in an instant, and it was still resisting with all its might. A blood contract dares to act rashly. Destroy it! Qin Feiyong shouted coldly. His divine power crazily poured into the Qilin Armor, engulfing the blood contract with an earth-shattering force. In fact, he also knew that this was not the blood contract resisting. It was the Fiend Ancestor's will that was stopping him. Although the Qilin Armor and the Fiend Ancestor were in the Black Tortoise world and the Sea of Reincarnation, the Fiend Ancestor could clearly sense that someone was forcefully erasing the Qilin Armor's blood contract. Encountering such a thing, the Fiend Ancestor naturally could not sit idly by. After all, the Qilin Armor was not an ordinary divine artifact. It was a supreme-grade divine artifact. No one would want it to be taken away by someone else. However, Qin Feiyong was also determined to erase this blood contract today. The power of the dragon continued to erode the Fiend Ancestor's blood contract. After hundreds of breaths of struggle, the blood contract finally disappeared. Qin Feiyong, you are courting death. Sea of Reincarnation. Somewhere in the demonic Dragon Island, an angry roar suddenly sounded with a monstrous murderous intent. Black Tortoise World. Qin Feiyong was sweating profusely at this moment. Although he had successfully erased the Fiend Ancestor's blood contract, he was also exhausted. The power of the dragon in his body was almost exhausted. From this it could be seen. The Fiend Ancestor's strength was indeed not to be underestimated. Do you understand? This is the Fiend Ancestor's strength. It is already so difficult to erase the blood contract before he has successfully merged with the divine body. When he succeeds, you won't be able to do it. The Qilin Armor said. Qin Feiyong did not refute this sentence. Because it was the truth. It was also because he knew that the Fiend Ancestor was still in a weak state that he made a prompt decision to erase the blood contract. Phew! Qin Feiyong let out a long breath and wiped the sweat off his forehead. He once again cut his index finger and a drop of purple-gold dragon blood fell on the Qilin Armor. Buzz! Immediately, the Qilin Armor emitted a purple-gold divine light. The blood contract was quickly completed. Let me make it clear in advance. I can serve you in the future, but if I encounter an opponent that I cannot defeat, I will not help you. The Qilin Armor said. You, an artifact spirit, are afraid of death? Qin Feiyong sneered. The Qilin Armor said disapprovingly, an artifact spirit is also a life and has its own thoughts. Is it strange to be afraid of death? Then tell me, what kind of opponent is invincible? Qin Feiyong said. I will judge this myself. In short, as long as you can threaten my body, I will immediately disappear. Don't think that I am joking. And don't think that with the blood contract binding me, I will unconditionally obey your orders. The artifact spirit snorted coldly. Then what do I need a divine artifact like you for? Why don't I just erase you now? Qin Feiyong laughed angrily. Erase me? The artifact spirit seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world and his words were full of sarcasm. You think I don't dare? Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with a cold light. I admit that you are my master now. If you want to erase me, it will be as easy as blowing off dust. But do you know? If you erase me, the artifact spirit, the Qilin Armor will instantly fall from a top-grade divine artifact to an ordinary divine artifact. Ask yourself, are you willing to do so? The artifact spirit was fearless. So this is what you are relying on. Qin Feiyong nodded in realization, and then the corner of his mouth pursed into a cold smile, and said, "But it seems that you still don't understand my temper, Qin Feiyong." Immediately, his mind moved. The artifact spirit suddenly screamed. A blood contract was the same as a secret technique like an enslavement seal. As long as there was a blood contract, with a thought, the artifact spirit could be erased. What are you doing? Are you really not afraid that the Qilin armor will become an ordinary divine artifact? Seeing that Qin Feiyong was serious, the artifact spirit panicked. Qin Feiyong said expressionlessly, "A disobedient divine artifact, I would rather destroy it." Don't, I'll listen. The artifact spirit was terrified, and shouted again and again. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyong said. Yes. I will protect you with my life," the artifact spirit said in fear. At this time, only then did Qin Feiyong stop, his eyes full of sneers. A mere artifact spirit dared to clamor with him? He was really reckless. Qin Feiyong said, "Go to my Qi Si." "Yes." The artifact spirit respectfully responded, and then controlled the Qilin armor, and disappeared into Qin Feiyong's body. Qin Feiyong glanced at it, shook his head, and prepared to leave the Black Tortoise world. Wait. But suddenly, he frowned, took out the axe, and lowered his head to look at it. The Qilin armor could not recognize its master because the demon ancestor's blood contract was still there. Then this axe could not recognize its master. Was it also because of the blood contract? No. When he first obtained the axe, he had checked it, and there was no blood contract inside. Moreover, Zhao Tailai had obtained the axe for so long. If there really was a blood contract, he should have discovered it long ago. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong released his spirit sense again and poured it into the axe, wanting to confirm it again. In the end, there was indeed no blood contract inside the axe. "What the hell is going on?" Qin Feiyong muttered. The undead should know, but when he asked, the undead did not say anything. He did not know if this undead was really unable to speak, or was he pretending not to be able to speak. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyong closed his eyes, and his perception extended infinitely. Back then, after bringing the undead to the Black Tortoise world, he did not pay attention to it anymore, and he did not know what it was doing now. And suddenly, his expression froze. The next moment, he appeared in the desert above the undead mountain range. Below, a vague figure was wandering in the void, as if looking for something. This vague figure was the undead, and Qin Feiyong found that compared to before, the outline of the undead was much clearer. Qin Feiyong frowned and said, "What are you doing?" The undead froze, raising its head to look at Qin Feiyong, seemingly with a kind of fear. Qin Feiyong glanced around, and suddenly seemed to think of something and said, "Don't tell me you're devouring the undead here?" Hearing this, the undead immediately lowered its head, and the fear in its heart grew stronger. "You're really devouring the undead here?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. He was just guessing, because this undead had devoured other undead in the ancient world before. Now, this undead happened to be in the desert. And in this desert, there was nothing else except the storm and the undead. If this undead said that it was devouring the storm, it was definitely impossible. So he guessed that it was devouring the undead. Qin Feiyong took a step forward and landed in front of the undead, and asked doubtfully, "Why are you devouring the undead?" The undead was silent. Qin Feiyong said, "Tell me the reason, maybe I'll continue to let you devour the undead here, but if you don't, I'll take you out of the desert now." Hearing this, the undead's fear immediately disappeared, but it was replaced by a trace of joy, but at the same time, there seemed to be a trace of hesitation. Genius remembered the address of this site in 1 second. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1801. Seeing that the undead didn't speak for a long time, Qin Feiyong began to lose his patience and said, "Leave with me." The undead hurriedly waved his hand, meaning not to take him away. "As I said, it's not impossible to stay here. But first, I want to know your identity and your intentions," Qin Feiyong said. The undead fell silent again. "I don't know my identity." But suddenly, A timid voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind, but it was very pleasant, like a young girl, but full of confusion. You can talk? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. The voice of the undead sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind, like the sound of nature, crisp and pleasant. Judging from the voice alone, she was definitely a beauty who could bring disaster to the country and the people. Then why didn't you talk to me before? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Before? I didn't dare. The undead seemed to be very afraid of Qin Feiyang, and his voice was timid. You didn't dare? Do you think I'm a bad person? Qin Feiyang was displeased. The undead said, You're not a bad person, but you're not a good person either. Ah. Qin Feiyang was stunned and said speechlessly, Since I'm not a good person in your eyes, why are you still following me? The undead said, Although you're not a good person, I can see that you have no malice towards me. That's true. But you haven't answered yet. Why are you following me? Qin Feiyang said. The undead said, Following you I feel safe. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Such a simple reason? Qin Feiyang said, Are you sure you're not lying to me? No. The undead shook his head. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said suspiciously, Just now you said that you don't know who you are? What does that mean? My mind is completely blank. I don't remember anything. The only memory I have is to survive, struggle, and devour the undead in the ancient world. The undead said. You don't remember? Qin Feiyang frowned. Could it be that one would lose their memories after becoming an undead? He didn't know much about the undead, so he couldn't tell whether this undead was lying to him or not. I'm not lying. I really don't have any memories. The undead seemed to have seen through Qin Feiyang's thoughts and said anxiously. Qin Feiyang said, Then tell me, why are you devouring the undead? Devouring undead can make me stronger. Furthermore, when I was in the ancient realm, I heard from other undead that when they reached a certain level, they would be able to condense a body like yours. The undead said. Is that so? Qin Feiyang was surprised. I don't know either, but I wish to condense a physical body. That way, I might be able to recover my memories. The undead said. It seems that the memory loss is real. Qin Feiyang mumbled. He looked down at the axe in his hand and said, Then it seems that you don't know anything about this axe? The undead shook his head. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed regretfully. Although I don't have any memories, I can feel that this axe gives me a very familiar feeling. That's why I protected it in the ancient realm. The undead said. I see. Then this axe must be related to you. Qin Feiyang thought for a while, shook the axe in his hand, and said with a smile, Do you want to go back? This? The undead looked at him timidly. You don't have to be so afraid of me. As long as you don't have any evil intentions, I won't hurt you. I'll keep this axe first. When you recover your memories and it's really related to you, I'll return it to you. Qin Feiyang said. Okay. The undead nodded. All right then, you can continue. Qin Feiyang smiled. His figure flashed, and he appeared above the Lu family. Then, he threw the axe to Zhao Tailai. Zhao Tailai took the axe, looked at Qin Feiyang, and asked suspiciously, Young master, where's Yan Nanshan? He's frozen. Qin Feiyang said. You want to resurrect him? Zhao Tailai was surprised. The emperor said in a deep voice, Feiyang, not only your great-grandfather, but I also won't allow it. Yes. You're now the pillar of the Great Qin Empire. The Great Qin Empire can't lose you. The three of them also nodded. Qin Feiyang took a look at the emperor and then at Qin Shang and the other two. He smiled. What's with your attitude? Can't you see that we're concerned about you? Qin Shang was dissatisfied. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded. Qin Shang said, Then you have to give us an accurate answer. Who can tell what's going to happen in the future? We'll talk about it when we get there. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked down at third grandpa. He asked suspiciously, Second grandpa hasn't come out yet? Third grandpa smiled and said, Resurrecting the sky mirror is not easy. Don't worry. The sky mirror. Qin Feiyang mumbled. It was like Zhuge Mingyang's all-seeing eye. He didn't expect the Lu family to have such a treasure. No wonder it had been able to find him so easily. Old Qin suddenly said, Feiyang, What should we do with the blood Kirin? The blood Kirin's eyes trembled. He looked at Qin Feiyong, feeling very nervous. Qin Feiyong looked away and looked at the blood Kirin. He didn't say anything. After a while, Qin Feiyong coldly grunted and said, Uncle Yen died because of it. We should kill it to atone for our sins, but the demon Alpha is the one responsible. Hearing this, the blood Kirin sighed in relief. It seemed that its life was saved. The king frowned and said, Are you going to let it go? Father, it is a low-level war god. It knows the demon Alpha well. Keeping it is more valuable than killing it. After Qin Feiyong said that, he turned to the blood Kirin and said, From now on, your duty is to protect the great Qin. Protect the descendants of the Qin clan. Protect them? The blood Kirin was shocked. He frowned and said, I am not following you. I don't need that. You just need to protect father and the others. Qin Feiyong's eyes were full of disdain. The blood Kirin said, Kid, I am a Kirin. You need to think carefully. If it was following Qin Feiyong, it wouldn't mind. After all, Qin Feiyong was someone who dared to challenge the demon Alpha. It wouldn't be too humiliating. But if it protected the great Qin, wouldn't that be lowering its status? I've thought it through. What? From the looks of it, you have a lot of objections to this arrangement of mine? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. I wouldn't dare. The blood Kirin hurriedly shook its head. What a joke. Its little life was in this person's hands. How could it have a problem? Qin Feiyong looked at it coldly. Suddenly, he turned to the emperor and said, Father, where is my little brother? He's fine now, but to you, the emperor said, his face full of worry. Obviously. The little prince still hated Qin Feiyong. Emperor Hong comforted him. Feiyong, don't be calculative. After all, he's still young and doesn't know anything. I know. If I was calculative, he would have been like the first prince and the others. On the contrary, I like him very much. Father, great-grandfather, you should pass the throne to him in the future, Qin Feiyong said with a smile. The emperor and Emperor Hong looked at each other and immediately frowned. In fact, they had always left the throne of the great Qin for Qin Feiyong. Because, whether it was strength or brains, in their opinion, the little prince couldn't compare to Qin Feiyong. Letting Qin Feiyong succeed as the next emperor was the most suitable. I've said it countless times in the past, I have no interest in power. Last time, I helped the little prince ascend to the throne, not to take revenge on you. It was sincere. Qin Feiyong laughed. Hearing this, the emperor and Emperor Hong's faces were filled with helplessness. Qin Feiyong looked at the blood Kirin and said, After we destroy the demon ancestor, you will follow my little brother. Even if you have to sacrifice your life, you must protect him well. Yes, sir. The blood Kirin said reluctantly. It had seen the little prince before. He was just a brat who was still wet behind the ears. He actually wanted it, a Qilin, to protect him? There was no justice in this world. Emperor Hong frowned and said, Feiyong, your father and I are still here, so the matter of the successor to the throne is not up to you. We'll discuss it later. That's right. If we die, we don't care what you do. But right now we are still alive. The emperor also said. Qin Feiyong was helpless. Looking at the two of them, they still wanted him to inherit the throne. But for the throne, he really wasn't interested in it at all. He just wanted to find his mother and live a simple life with his family. So, at this time, second grandpa appeared. Qin Feiyong asked, How is it? The stealing sky mirror can't find his whereabouts. Second grandpa shook his head. That means, the demon ancestor should still be on Demon Dragon Island. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed, he turned to the Blood Kirin and said, Blood Kirin, take us to Demon Dragon Island immediately. Are you sure you want to go? The Blood Kirin frowned. Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up. Qin Feiyong shouted. The Blood Kirin said, Then don't you have to give me a spirit sea pill first to repair my chi si? Qin Feiyong took out a spirit sea pill and threw it to it. Then, he looked at Emperor Hong and the Emperor and said, You guys go back to the Imperial City. Emperor Hong was stunned and hurriedly said, I'll go with you guys. The more people there are, the more we can take care of each other. Just let your father and the others go back. No. Father and the others are only false gods. If the demon ancestor subordinates go to the imperial city, I'm afraid they won't be able to stop them. So, there must be a war god overseeing it. The imperial city has you overseeing it. The Lu family has fourth grandpa overseeing it. Only then can I be at ease fighting the demon ancestor. Qin Feiyong said. Emperor Hong wanted to say something, but the emperor smiled and said, Grandfather, let's listen to Feiyong's arrangements. All right. Emperor Hong looked at the emperor, then looked at Qin Feiyong and nodded helplessly. Qin Feiyong turned to look at Elder Qin and said with a smile, You don't have to go either. What do you mean? Elder Qin raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyong took out the space-time gate and handed it to Elder Qin, saying, I need you to oversee the 9 prefectures. Oversee the 9 prefectures? Elder Qin was puzzled. Yes. Although the teleportation altar is destroyed, I'm worried that the demon ancestor subordinates might be in the 9 prefectures. When dawn comes, open the space-time gate and go to the 9 prefectures. Qin Feiyong said. This fake space-time gate could only be opened once a day. Chapter 1802. This? Old Man Qin frowned. Qin Feiyong stuffed the space-time gate into Old Man Qin's hands and said with a smile, I believe that you don't want to see the people of the 9 continents plunged into misery and suffering. Old Man Qin said, I really don't want to see the people plunged into misery and suffering, but... All right, it's decided then. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, his words carrying a majesty that could not be disobeyed. He then looked at the Blood Kirin and said, Give me the coordinates. All right. The Blood Kirin nodded. After the Blood Kirin gave him the coordinates, Qin Feiyong immediately opened the teleportation gate and brought the Blood Kirin, Zhao Tai Lai, and Tang Hai in without looking back. The teleportation gate quickly dissipated. Old Man Qin was stunned. He lowered his head to look at the space-time gate, feeling that something was wrong. Wait. Suddenly, Old Man Qin looked at Emperor Hong, the emperor and fourth grandpa, and said, Is this kid afraid that I will drag him down, so he sent me away and let me go to the 9 continents? Emperor Hong sighed. You've been with him for so long, don't you understand him? What do you mean? Old Man Qin was suspicious. Fourth grandpa said, What Emperor Hong means is that Feiyong is worried that we will be in danger, so he doesn't want us to follow. So that's how it is. Old Man Qin suddenly understood, and then said, Demon Ancestor's strength is so terrifying, can he handle it alone? I'm afraid he doesn't plan on coming back alive this time. The Emperor said worriedly. Old Man Qin said anxiously, Then we can't let him go alone. How about this? I'll go support him. Emperor Hong waved his hand and said, Forget it, let's listen to his arrangements. Don't distract him. Sea of Samsara. Deep in the sea above an island. Swish. 3 people and a beast appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyong, the Blood Kirin, Tang Hai, and Zhao Tai Lai. On the surface of the sea, the wind howled and the waves rolled. Qin Feiyong scanned the surroundings, and his eyes gradually became fierce. The Blood Kirin said unhappily, Kid, is there something wrong with your head? What are you talking about? Zhao Tai Lai said angrily. Isn't that so? Emperor Hong, Old Qin, and fourth grandpa of the Lu family are all war gods. If they come together, our chances of winning will definitely be higher. The Blood Qilin said. What do you know? Young Master is doing this because he doesn't want them to risk their lives. After all, we are facing the fiend ancestor. No one knows what will happen. Zhao Tai Lai snorted coldly. The Blood Kirin was shocked. Does that mean you guys aren't sure you can win? No. Qin Feiyong said. The Blood Kirin's face changed. It looked at Qin Feiyong and smiled. In that case, I will go to the palace and protect the little prince. Veins popped out on Zhao Tai Lai's forehead as he said furiously, I say, you're at any rate also a divine beast, Qilin. Why are you so greedy for life and afraid of death? Who would be willing to throw their lives away? The Blood Kirin frowned. Qin Feiyong turned around and looked at the Blood Kirin. His eyes looked cold, and he said, If you keep talking crap, I will kill you. The Blood Kirin's neck shrank. It didn't dare say another word. Qin Feiyong looked at it, then looked at Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai.
He said, "Old Zhao, old Tang, do you regret following me?"
"A little," Tang Hai said.
Zhao Tailai was shocked and then he said angrily, "Old Tang, you. Let me finish."
Tang Hai stared at him. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "When I followed you, I didn't think I would face so much. Although I regret it, I like this feeling. I am done." Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed.
"You?"
Zhao Tailai looked at Tang Hai helplessly. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyong and smiled.
"Young master, I only have one thing to say.
Since we are on the same side, let us go to the other side." "Thank you." Qin Feiyong thanked him gratefully.
He looked at the blood Kirin and said, "Lead the way."
"What a bunch of idiots." The blood Kirin rolled its eyes at Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai.
It pointed to the sea in front of them and said, "Go straight ahead." Qin Feiyong waved his hand and led the two men and one beast towards the sea in front of them.
As they went deeper, the wind and waves became stronger. From time to time, sea beasts would sneak out to attack them. These sea beasts were at least 5-star combat emperors. However, for a group of war gods, this was nothing. Very soon, a strange scene appeared in front of them. Although the Sea of Reincarnation was full of wind and waves, the sky was no different from other places. The sun was high in the sky. However, the sky above the sea a few hundred miles in front of them was covered with dark clouds. From afar, it looked extremely dark and depressing. The blood Kirin's eyes became serious.
It said in a low voice, "That is the forbidden area of the Sea of Reincarnation."
Whoosh! Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and rushed into the so-called forbidden area without looking back. Woo-woo! Crash! The wind and waves here were stronger than outside. The wind blew on their bodies, and even their skin hurt. Roar! Many huge sea beasts roared in the sea. Their cultivation levels were at peak 9-star combat emperors. The blood Kirin said, "These sea beasts are the demon ancestor spies." "Is that so?" Qin Feiyong mumbled.
"Blood Kirin, how dare you betray Master? Master will not let you off."
Countless sea beasts roared and were full of hostility. However, none of them came out to block the way. The blood Kirin was furious. If its Sea of Qi had not been destroyed, it would have started a massacre. Qin Feiyong turned a deaf ear to it.
He streaked across the sky like lightning and said, "By the way, who is the person you mentioned not long ago?"
"You really want to know?" The blood Kirin said. Qin Feiyong said, "If the demon ancestor is so afraid, he must not be an ordinary person." The blood Kirin said, "Actually, you know him too."
"I know him too?"
Qin Feiyong was surprised.
"Yes. This person is Qin Yuan."
The blood Kirin said. "What?
Uncle Yuan?"
Qin Feiyong's body froze. He stopped in the sky above the sea and looked at the blood Kirin in disbelief. Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai were also shocked. The blood Kirin said, "I knew you would look like that. I did not lie to you. It really is Qin Yuan." "How can it be Uncle Yuan?"
"Father and the others said not long ago that Uncle Yuan is my grandfather's subordinate."
"He is just a fake god. The demon ancestor is so powerful. How can he be so afraid of Uncle Yuan?" Qin Feiyong could not believe it. The blood Qilin said, "I don't know the details, but I do know that this Uncle Yuan of yours has another identity." "What is it?" Qin Feiyong asked.
The blood Kirin said slowly, "The protector of this continent."
"Protector." Qin Feiyong and the others trembled. They were no strangers to the title of protector. For example, the fire dragon, the giant python, and the fire python were all protectors of the miracle. Their powers and methods were shocking. The demon ancestor could be said to hate the people of the Qin clan to the bone.
"But because of Qin Yuan, he does not dare to kill you,"
the blood Kirin said. Chapter 1803.
"What is going on?"
Qin Feiyong mumbled. Uncle Yuan was the protector of this continent. That was unexpected. The blood Kirin said, "And the snow python of the Forgotten Continent. She is also the protector of the Forgotten Continent." The protector of the Forgotten Continent. Tang Hai and Zhao Tailai looked at each other in shock. No wonder the snow python was so powerful. What about Qin Yuan's cultivation? Is he really just a fake god? Zhao Tai asked.
Of course not. I don't know exactly how strong he is, but the Demon Alpha is afraid of him. That means he is at least stronger than the Demon Alpha.
The Blood Kirin said. Stronger than the Demon Alpha? Zhao Tai frowned.
He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Master, this is different from what your father said.
Yes.
I think something must have happened to Uncle Yuan.
And no one knows about this except for Uncle Yuan himself.
Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, No, the snow python might know.
It looks like we have to find Qin Yuan to figure it out.
But I am confused. If Qin Yuan has become so strong, why didn't he just kill Mu Tianyang and the Demon Alpha?
Zhao Tai was confused.
The Blood Kirin said, I heard that the protectors cannot get involved in the conflicts of the continent.
But I don't know if that is true.
Can't get involved in the conflicts, Qin Feiyang furrowed his brows and said. So, you let Zhuge Mingyang and the state preceptor deal with the Lu family in order to test Uncle Yuan and see if he would make a move?
Yes. The Blood Kirin nodded.
Qin Feiyang said, You are using Zhuge Mingyang and the Grandmaster as tools.
Do you really think the Demon Alpha likes them? Naive.
The Demon Alpha just wants to use them to monitor the Imperial Palace and retrieve the God Body. Now that the God Body has been retrieved, there is no need for the Imperial Palace to monitor them. So, whether they live or die is not important. In short, in the Demon Alpha's eyes, they are just two chess pieces. The Blood Kirin laughed. Chess piece? Qin Feiyang muttered inside. Fortunately, Zhuge Mingyang is already dead. Otherwise, he would probably go berserk if he heard this.
It's just the truth.
The Blood Kirin laughed coldly. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. He felt sorry for Zhuge Mingyang and said, Let's put Uncle Yuan's matter aside first. Tell me about Ancestor Devil's Foundation.
Who are the people around him now?
How many gods of war and false gods are there? Qin Feiyang led the 2 humans and 1 beast and continued forward. The Fiend Ancestor subordinates are basically like me. They have followed the Fiend Ancestor since a long time ago. After years of recuperation, the number is huge. Just the humans alone number in the millions. They all live in the Ancestral Devil's Spatial Divine item.
The Blood Qilin said.
Millions. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were shocked. This number far exceeded their expectations. Zhao Tai asked, Is it that black castle?
No.
The Fiend Ancestor has 2 spatial divine items. The Black Castle is just one of them. The space is small and can't hold so many people. As for the other spatial divine item, it is almost half the size of the Imperial capital. But in comparison, the Black Castle is stronger than the other spatial divine item.
The Blood Qilin explained.
Qin Feiyang nodded. This wasn't unexpected. After all, the Black Castle could withstand the rule power of the miracle. Its level was naturally not low. As for the gods of war and false gods, you will be shocked to death if I tell you. Among the millions of humans, there are 12 gods of war and at least 50 false gods. As for the beasts, besides me, there are 6 gods of war. As for the false god beasts, that's even more than the number of false gods humans have.
The Blood Qilin said.
So many. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were stunned. 12 gods of war and 6 gods of war. That was a total of 18 gods of war. Not to mention there were so many false gods. This is why I didn't want to come. 18 gods of war, more than 100 false gods, plus the Fiend Ancestor. This force is enough to make us die without a burial place.
The Blood Qilin sighed deeply. The future was bleak. Zhao Tai smiled bitterly.
Young master, I think we should bring old Qin and the others. The Fiend Ancestor's overall strength had far surpassed them. As expected, this battle would be a situation of 9 deaths and 1 life. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhao Tai and said, The more terrifying the Fiend Ancestor's background is, the more we can't let old Qin and the others come. The Blood Qilin said, Then are you confident in getting rid of them?
I don't know.
Qin Feiyang shook his head.
I don't know.
That means I'm not confident. If you're not confident, then why are you still showing off? Let me tell you, even if the Fiend Ancestor doesn't make a move, even if Emperor Hong and the others come, we are not their opponent. Because among the 12 gods of war, there are 2 lesser success stage gods of war. The Blood Qilin snorted. What? There are 2 lesser success stage gods of war. Zhao Tailai was surprised. Yes. There are 2 humans. Their strength is about the same as mine. I can hold one, and Qin Feiyong can hold the other. The Blood Qilin said. What about the other gods of war and false gods? Zhao Tailai asked. When the Blood Qilin heard this, he grinned and said, The other gods of war and false gods will be left to the 2 of you. Are you kidding me? Aside from the 2 lesser success stage gods of war, there are still 10 lesser success stage gods of war, not to mention more than 100 false gods. How can Tang Hai and I deal with them? Zhao Tailai's face was dark. Tang Hai said coldly, If they don't have divine artifacts, it's not impossible. I'm sorry. Aside from those false gods, the 12 gods of war, whether human or beast, all have divine artifacts. The divine artifacts of the 2 lesser success stage gods of war are the same as the Sky Demon Flag and the Qilin armor. They are all top-quality divine artifacts. The Blood Qilin laughed. Hearing this, Tang Hai couldn't stay calm. If all 12 gods of war had divine artifacts, how could they fight? Are you scared too? Qin Feiyong glanced at Tang Hai and teased him. Tang Hai said angrily, Are you kidding? There are so many gods of war and divine artifacts. Who wouldn't be scared? Actually, you don't have to worry. I can handle the 2 lesser success stage gods of war by myself. You, Old Zhao, Xueqi, the Golden Leopard, and the Blood Qilin will deal with the other 10 gods of war. Qin Feiyong said. Wait, I have heard about the Golden Leopard from the Demon Alpha. But who is Xueqi? The Blood Qilin was confused. He is my subordinate. He has become a god of war, but I have never let him show himself. Aside from us, no one else knows. Qin Feiyong said. The Blood Qilin was shocked. This kid had hidden his strength well. He lowered his head and thought. After a while, the Blood Qilin looked at Qin Feiyong and said, If what you said is true, then our chances of winning are quite high. Although the 10 gods of war all have divine artifacts, my cultivation level is higher than theirs. With Zhao Tailai and the others helping me, killing them. Don't say that. It's not that difficult. After saying that, the Blood Qilin grinned, revealing a mouthful of white fangs. It's nice to imagine. Tang Hai glanced at the Blood Qilin. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, But against 2 lesser success stage gods of war with divine artifacts, can you do it? How do you know if you don't try? Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Tang Hai pursed his lips and grunted. Even if you can do it, don't forget that there is still the Demon Alpha. So, we have to find the Demon Alpha as soon as possible. That means we have to kill some of them before the Demon Alpha successfully merges with the divine body. Only then will we have a chance of winning. Qin Feiyong said. Then let's hurry. Don't you have the Xing formula? Use the Xing formula to take us there. The Blood Qilin urged. Since this battle was unavoidable, they had to do their best. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.